Hypocrisy.
You're my lawyer?
Says here you robbed a hospital. Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I'm not guilty.
That's not what the other lawyer said.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I'm your host, Nick Ricada of Ricada Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. Oh, my goodness. Sleeping on the couch. How are you doing tonight? Oh, boy. It is Tuesday night. Wrong mic? 1 second. What mic's it even using? Why would it use that? Why would it use that mic? Why would that even happen? Anyway. So, sorry about that. I cleared the some of the internet cache in Chrome. Just a second. All right. Sorry about that. I cleared the internet cache in Chrome, and it reset a bunch of things in various apps, well, in web pages like StreamYard, for example. So yes, I saw Minneapolis voted not to defund the police. A bunch of stuff is going on today. It's been a really interesting day. I, of course, spent most of my time focused on Kyle Rittenhouse. I have done now 2 days of 8.5 to 9 hours of coverage of Kyle Rittenhouse. That will continue tomorrow for yet another day of bell-to-bell coverage. And then it will be a little different on Thursday. Thursday, I will start approximately an hour to an hour and 15 minutes late, and we'll catch up to whatever's going on at that time. We're going to talk a little bit about Kyle Rittenhouse tonight, I should say. We're going to talk a little bit about the second witness. The second witness has now been reported on. We know who it was and what they were testifying to, and it is remarkable. It is remarkable. Brad Wing says, I know your back has to hurt bad. No, my back is actually feeling really good. And I'll chalk it up to this chair, which is a fantastic chair, by the way. Someone in the chat said $1,600 chair. Yes, it's a very expensive chair. It is the Herman Miller Logitech collab gaming chair. It's weird. It's not actually the most comfortable chair that I've ever sat in or anything like that. Because comfortable chairs, you feel that you're sitting in them. This one, you don't. And it is, it's just a very neutral experience, and it is supportive, and it's really a nice chair. I don't know how to explain it. You don't really notice that you're sitting down. Whereas I had Chaircoon for a while, which had a Tempur-Pedic butt cushion and everything. And after a while, you just get really tired of sitting in it. Yeah, not as good as the Judge's Mechanicus reclining throne. That thing is insane. giant like wooden structure with pads on it and the seal of Wisconsin or whatever. And he sits down, then it rocks back. You're like, wait, what? This thing moves? This moves like that? Anyway, and since I spend so much time of my job, sitting in this chair, it was pretty easy to justify the tax write-off for it. So, whoo. So, but we are going to talk about the Fed who testified in Kyle Rittenhouse's case in just a little bit. We will do that. I've got some other news stories. We've got an update on the boy in the skirt. Turns out it was just like 10 seconds of accidental anal. He was trying to rape her vaginally. So that's good. That's good news, right? It was and it was just a little bit of slip. Just a slip in. The old slipperoo. Happens from time to time. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to punish everybody who has the old slipperoo on that? I mean, that just seems uncouth. Anyway, his mom has been making all kinds of statements today, which is just great. She should keep talking a whole lot about how her son was just, I mean, she didn't not consent, or she didn't disconsent, so therefore she did consent, and he'd had sex with her before, so how could it possibly be rape? All of these things. He'd had sex with her before. He wanted to have sex with her again. He just figured the school bathroom was the place to do it, and then just gave her the old slipperoo. So that's fine. She wants you to know he's totally hetero, though. Completely hetero. I mean, I guess he didn't rape a male, so it's none of that gay stuff. Apparently, we'll see. We're gonna read her words. I don't think she's doing her son any favors. But of course, in her defense, she does say that that her son has like basically broken her. That what he has done. It's about her now. She literally can't do any of this right. It's not about the son doing the raping or the victims that he is raping. It's really though about the mom. So we'll have to do that in just a minute. The other thing that we've got is I've got a feel good story about a real life Liam Neeson. So we'll cover that as well. Virginia appears to be going red. Virginia, is it finalized yet? We're going to check on that on Virginia if their new governor is Democrat or Republican. I don't know if it's finalized, but it was looking very strongly like Virginia will go red. And finally, a drunken Ethan Ralph will match his state, which will be perfect for him. I'm very excited for the state of Virginia. Very happy for them to have some change they can believe in. And then I do have another story about that I just started reading a little bit ago. It's about a sex cult with making murder snuff films. And it like I started reading it and I was like, what the hell is this? And then as I got into it, it's super wild. So I figured I'd share it with you guys because I love you. I love you. And I was intrigued by it. So I thought maybe you would too. Or you would be too. Pablo Rodriguez says, F the Astros, very rude. No, it's not Nexium. Not Nexium. Nexium did not involve making snuff films. So we'll have to check that. Judge on ACLU lawsuit extended voting time? I have no idea. Am I a lawyer or no? Yes, Ryan Carr, I am a lawyer. Why? Why do you ask? All right. So Pablo Rodriguez very, very rudely says F the Astros as the Atlanta Braves have clinched the World Series. Are they still allowed to be called the Braves? Or are they the Atlanta baseball team? I don't know. I don't follow it anymore. Are they what happened? Are they still the Braves? The Braves they have won the World Series for the first time since sometime in the 90s. Oh, Ryan Carr. So you're relatively new. Yeah. Yes, I am a lawyer in Minnesota. Although mostly I do YouTube, trying to do less law and more YouTube as it's a whole lot more fun. This show is going to be completely different than the show you watched for the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. These nighttime shows are more of a variety late night radio. And we cover all sorts of topics, and it gets very, very offensive in here. This is a free speech stream, and we get to exercise that free speech quite a bit. So welcome to the channel. I'm glad that you came through the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff, and enjoy this show too. Have fun with the chat. That's what it's there for. All right, so Peter Bemis says, how is the Peruvian marching powder, seeing as how it's the only way you can still be awake? No, I have never done cocaine and do not intend to. I actually was warned specifically by every doctor who's ever seen me in my life. They said, if you do cocaine, I'm warning you, one sniff and you will do all of it and immediately die. I mean, you'll turn into a raging monster for about 12 minutes of glory, and then you'll die from an overdose. Your nose cannot have powder going into it. It's very, very unsafe. So I have never done it. I have no intention of doing it. That is, like, joking aside, it has always been something that is kind of, it's weird to me. The idea of sniffing something and then sucking it down through the back, that yuck. I don't like it. I don't like it. But no. I did fall asleep right after getting off of the Krigler show. I went upstairs and passed out on the couch for a little bit and got up to do this show. So we're burning the candle at both ends, or whatever that saying is. But yeah. Okay, let's get some of this. Should we do the Fed talk first? Fed testifies on Kyle Rittenhouse. Let me find that story. I have where did it go? One of the big things about Kyle Rittenhouse, of course, right now is the fact that they are sorry, looking for the link. Where the hell did it go? Don't you hate when you have something and then you don't have it anymore? I'll find it in a minute. The New York Post has been running with the story about how much Kyle Rittenhouse was yawning during his homicide trial. He must have been bored or whatever, which is a ludicrous sort of thing. Tell you what, when you're here, let's pull it up. I'll kind of recap what I said on Adam's show. When you're on trial for murder and your whole life is hanging in the balance of this case, you're probably not sleeping very well. You're there all day and there's nothing for you to do. And all the people around you are lawyers. And if you've ever been around a lawyer, they're absolutely terrible people. They're really boring. They're horrific to listen to. They don't tell good jokes, as we found out from the stream earlier today. They tell boomer jokes and then they laugh at them together. Oh, Dino did nothing wrong. Kind of like Hitler. 2020. A dumpster fire kind of reminds me of the last year, I say. Like, what are these jokes? They're not good. They're not good at all. And if you really want to know, like, I can provide the most realistic example of this that exists, and there's a channel on YouTube that you can go to. You can see a lawyer try and struggle and fail to tell jokes over and over, and it's getting embarrassing at this point, like just how cringe pilled this YouTube channel is. It's run by a lawyer. His name's Attorney Tom. And I mean, the jokes are just, it's like, oh my God. Oh, thank God. All of my great uncles got together and are telling the real rip roars from the past here on Attorney Tom's channel. Fantastic. Wonderful. This is the reality of lawyers and joking. They're not good at it. So you're sitting around boring people. You're sitting around unable to do anything. Everybody is speaking at a level you don't understand, especially because you're an 18-year-old and they're talking about they're doing legal speak around you, and there's just nothing. Him yawning is not a story at all. him yawning is not a story at all, and they're making it out. But here's go away. Repeatedly yawns in court during homicide trial. Look, Schrader's even bored, though. Even Schrader's bored here. Kyle Rittenhouse struggled to stay focused and yawned throughout. Focus on what? He can't. There's nothing for him to focus on. He's literally just going to sit there and not say anything for the overwhelming majority of the trial. What about Legal Eagle? All I know about him, he's taller than Attorney Tom. Very, very sad. I actually wonder. I wonder if Attorney Tom is even as tall as Joseph Rosenbaum. And to be fair, Binger, who is a giant amongst the other lawyers, I don't know how tall this guy is, but all the other lawyers were a head shorter than him. But Binger is there talking about Rosenbaum not being a threat because he's a 5'3", he's a little 5'3" midget running around. That was one of the funniest things that happened. It was that was great. That was great. But yeah, I if Joseph Rosenbaum is that short and therefore not a threat to anyone, I don't know how Attorney Tom could be a threat to anyone. Because Legal Eagle is at least 6-7 inches taller than him, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. When you really get down to it, how much taller Legal Eagle is than Attorney Tom. Okay, so he struggled to stay focused and yawned throughout his homicide trial Tuesday in Wisconsin that will decide whether he spends his life behind bars for a triple shooting. Rittenhouse, 18, let out several yawns as lawyers from both sides prepared to give opening statements. So nothing's even happening for him to focus on at this point. In a Kenosha court about him fatally shooting 2 women and wounding a third. Wait, 2 men. Sorry, 2 men wounding a third during last year's protests over police brutality. He yawned often during the proceedings, including when he stood for jurors to enter the courtroom and when his own lawyer began his opening remarks. Look, I'm going to yawn right now. I'm going to yawn. Do I deserve to go to prison now? The day earlier during jury selection, the teen also couldn't help himself from yawning. Again, I would assume he's not having the longest nights of sleep lately. He's probably very stressed out. He is staying at some undisclosed location, which we have no idea how close to Kenosha that is. He could be driving as much as an hour, each morning, depending on where he's coming from. I have no idea. So I think my kids were up because I'm pretty sure Lady Rackets just yelled at them to go to bed. But yeah, so I all of these different factors, there's any number of reasons for this kid to be tired, and for them to do this is just low level journalism. Rittenhouse, who is an aspiring police officer, is accused of fatally shooting Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber, as well as wounding Gage Grosskreutz on August 25th, 2020. He's not an aspiring police. The stages of yawn. The shooting coincided with the unrest in the city following the police shooting a few days earlier of Jacob Blake, black man who's left paralyzed from the waist down. Now, again, Rittenhouse is probably no longer an aspiring police officer. He's not gonna get a job as a police officer. I hate to say it, or maybe I like to say it. I don't know. Maybe he's going to get red pilled on the whole being a police officer situation, because people who go through this type of scenario, where they go from where they experience the full love of the criminal justice system, often shockingly become disillusioned with its effectiveness. It's weird how that works. They're like, oh man, this was just great. I loved that for 2 years I was accused of a crime I didn't commit, and then drugged through the mud by some attorney who's using me on his resume, and also stamped into the dirt by the media. That's a lot of fun. This is perfect. What a system. It's really, really chipper. Let's see. Prosecutors have argued that Rittenhouse was a vigilante who traveled to Kenosha seeking conflict, while the defense has claimed that he acted out of self-defense. He faces 2 homicide counts, 1 attempted homicide, along with charges of reckless endangering and illegal possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18. If convicted of the top charge of intentional homicide, he faces life in prison. So there you go. That's the brief story on Kyle yawning that I wanted to talk about. Let me find this story. Where did it go? Not that one. This one? No. Is it this one? This is one of them. All right, this will work for now. Where is the reporting on this? I hate people who use Twitter professionally. It's so awful. Oh my God. This election is burying all the other stuff. Well, let's start here. Okay. Let's start here. We'll watch this video again. I didn't get a good look at it while we were on stream. This is the video from Jack Posobiec. And I think it does bear a watch. One thing to notice from this video. So prior to us getting to the Fed footage, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, we have this bit of cell phone footage here. I found an interesting coincidence. Corey Elijah down here at the bottom. This is Corey Washington. This is the guy who is testifying, the third witness today. This is his cell phone footage. So I just found that neat. Doesn't mean anything. But let's take a look. This is what the Fed camera saw, and let's see if we garner anything out of this. I made Tom cry. Oh, good. We should have noticed from the muffled bruh. Oh, this is clearly edited to add some informational graphics.
Yeah, further.
Yeah, these stupid wait.
Over there. Yeah, they definitely need that trash can to put their garbage out. Oh, he's blocking the road. So now we're out by further. So a large crowd over here smashing the SUVs.
Smashing SUVs. That's that thumping sound. That's them busting windshield.
Hey!
Okay, so there's the video. There's the video. Which is this is the secret Fed footage that they have. Right? Like this was the big bombshell. What is this? Live coverage. Daily updates. Do we have today's update? Nope. Daily updates on Free Kyle USA are a couple days behind. So that's nice. Let's see. See if we can find this. Really? Wow. Okay. Look at this. So I type into Twitter, Kyle Rittenhouse, second witness, right? Considering the trial was earlier, and this was actually a story. Look at the tweets. The top tweet on Twitter, December 6th, 2020 from Alfie Moon. Latest, February 8th and December 6th have nothing to do with what's going on. Are we serious? Are we serious about this? Hold on. I'm going to Where is this where is this second witness thing? I read this story on Twitter earlier. I'll start summarizing it if necessary. The long story short is that the second witness today was a federal agent. Okay, he's a federal agent, and that is he was testifying because this FLIR footage that they're looking for, they're asking for a HD copy of it from the FBI. So it was an FBI agent. He's actually named. Where the fuck is this story? I was reading it on Twitter on my phone. Why is no one talking about this story? Here's Posobiec talking about it. I saw it from a different source. Look, I don't know Jack Posobiec. I know a lot of people like him, but I know a lot of people also don't trust him. They think he's partisan, think he's whatever. I saw this confirmed by a different person who is just a a reporter for a major news wire. Jack Posobiec's exclusive SBI testified in private that there is second version of the surveillance tape in HD that it did not provide the defense. Per courtroom member, the defense had requested a copy of the HD tape. The FBI responded that the HD tape no longer exists. If the FBI had a plane up, more than likely had a Stingray up as well and captured all the electronic comms from the night of the Kyle Rittenhouse shooting as well, refusing to share with Kyle's legal team. This is speculative. This is not speculative. This part is real. This has been confirmed. This is confirmed by a reporter. Again, I'm trying to find it. Mark Richards did raise objections to the fact that they aren't getting it, saying this was preposterous by the reporting that I saw. So let me let's see. Kyle Rittenhouse, FBI. Zero Hedge has a write-up on it. So here we go. Here's this is from Free Kyle USA. Back on October 30th, the state received the video from the FBI over 5 months ago, but just recently disclosed to the defense only after pressure. In less than a week, America will see the video and understand why Kyle rightfully believed his life was in serious danger. Here's this one. Where is... I cannot find this story to save my life. I've just got the Posobiec story, but the other write-up was much better. God damn it. Where do we have this? Nothing. It's gone. I don't know where I got it. I don't know where I had it from. Very frustrating. Well, I've given you the rundown of the story. I really wanted to get the... Automata sent me a DM. Hold on. I don't have Discord up. Maybe it'll be on here. I'll take a look. Let's see. Here we go. This has it in here, so we'll take a look.
Patrick, Dominic Black said today.
Be quiet, Carolyn Reinwald. This has some of the information on it. Sorry, I didn't. Somebody sent it to me, I think, and I should have been able to find it again, but I couldn't. Prosecution's first 3 witnesses testify in Rittenhouse trial. Need this. Dominic Black. Here we go in Rittenhouse. This is not important here. Prosecutors called FBI agent Brandon Carman as their second witness Tuesday. Okay. Brandon Craman, FBI agent. So here it is. Oh, I don't have it pulled up on screen for you. There you go. We are here. Prosecutors called FBI agent Brandon Craman as their second witness Tuesday. He testified about law enforcement aerial surveillance of the protests on the night of the shootings. Now, this part was not broadcast for whatever reason. I don't know why the FBI agent Brandon Craman was not allowed to be on camera, was not allowed to have audio for the public. I don't know why FBI agent Brandon Craman is for some reason being protected from the same video and audio recording as every other witness will have to face. I thought this was a minor. I thought this one was someone whose identity deserved to be protected. This is a federal agent testifying as part of law enforcement in a criminal case. This person should not be protected. There is nothing that suggests that Brandon Kramen should not have been broadcast to the entire world. I don't know why he was not, but it's really frustrating to find out that this is the guy. Yeah, you told me it was a Fed, but so, like, you don't know at the time. You can't confirm. And again, just because Jack Posobiec, who's not in the courtroom, says it doesn't make it necessarily true. I like to corroborate things, but it being a Fed who's not particularly undercover or particularly vulnerable to something does not need to be protected from broadcast. It doesn't make any sense. So here we go. Prosecutors have said previously the surveillance video could show that, at least at some point in the night, it was Rittenhouse who was following and chasing Rosenbaum. After Kramen took the stand, prosecutors played for jurors a grainy black and white video taken by Kramen in an airplane flying 8,500 feet overhead. So this is an airplane flying overhead. It's more than a mile up, mile and a half-ish. None of the fuzzy figures on the ground were immediately identifiable. Prosecutors said they were done questioning the FBI agent before they ever identified anyone in the grainy footage or explained the significance of it to the Rittenhouse case. So they just got it in to authenticate it, apparently. Because the federal agent has no way to know that that's Kyle Rittenhouse, that that's Rosenbaum, that that's Zeminski. He actually wouldn't have the foundation to know that. So that's probably why they didn't ask him about it. They will likely circle back to the video later in the presentation. During cross-examination, when the defendants asked for the tail number of the two-man plane, prosecutors objected. The judge asked the attorneys to step forward for a sidebar on the issue. He then asked the jurors to leave the courtroom as they continued to discuss the video taken by FBI in the surveillance plane. Good question, right? What's the tag number? What's the tail number on the plane? Prove you were up there. Like, prove anything about this. How are we authenticating this? A federal agent says it's the video that shows something. Okay. How do we know you were in the plane? How do you know this is the right video? These are things that you have to lay out in court. You have to lay a proper foundation for all of this stuff. And we don't have any indication that any foundation was laid at this point for why they would have it. This is the part of the issue here. So yeah, ask the jurors to leave as they continue to discuss the video taken by the FBI agent in the surveillance plane. Richards told the judge he believed there was other video taken by the FBI that was no longer available. Richards said he was incredulous the FBI could take video that captured alleged homicides and then got rid of that video. That is preposterous, Richards added. The judge balked when Binger told him regarding footage from the plane that the federal government is not under our control. I beg your pardon, the judge said, interrupting Binger. I don't get this, the judge said. This is a criminal prosecution. If there's going to be cloak and dagger stuff, what's going on? He later said prosecutors should skip the FBI agent for now, call a different witness, and come back to the issue of the plane later. So those were those technical issues. Those are the technical issues that the judge mentioned as we came back to questioning is, we don't even know. So right now, we don't even know if the FBI footage can be admissible. Richards used it in his opening statement. He used it in the opening briefly, showing some imagery from it, but we don't know if they'll be able to actually admit this footage. There's a real big problem here with the disclosure of evidence. This should have been disclosed immediately when the prosecution had it available. The fact that it's not is highly prejudicial, especially because the prosecution was well aware that the defense had a literal video expert witness who could have been incorporating this footage into his expert analysis, and they did not. the prosecution's third witness was self-described social media influencer Corey Washington. So this is the story. Again, it's FBI agent what's his name? FBI agent Brandon Kramen. Wonder if he shows up anywhere else. Let's see. These are all what is this? Oh, the World Socialist website. I like this is my new news source from now on. This is the one I'm going to read. I don't know why I've ever read any other news source than this. Check this out. Trial of fascist shooter Kyle Rittenhouse begins in Kenosha, Wisconsin. The trial of the fascist shooter Kyle Rittenhouse began at the Kenosha County Courthouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Does that mean he's shooting the fascists? Or that he is a fascist who is a shooter? It's not very clear from their writing. On Tuesday, with opening statements and witness testimony. Let's see if they have any other funny stuff here. Come on, get your commentator. Get your commentary in there. In his opening statement, Rittenhouse defense attorney Mark Richards made plain his team's intention to make the murderous rampage of the shooter out to be an act of self-defense against an assault by protesters. Oh my gosh, that's great. That's fantastic. Sorry, I enjoyed that a little more than I should. Okay, so yeah, I am hearing that McAuliffe has lost in Virginia. Is that right? Is that what we're hearing? Let's get an update on the Virginia governor election. NPR. Here we go. This is from NPR. So Glenn Younkin wins Virginia's governor race, a major upset for Democrats nationwide. So racist Glenn Younkin, with his Confederate flag wearing definitely not plant supporters, has ousted definitely not racist Terry McAuliffe. So he has ousted him. The election is called. That doesn't mean it's fully done, right? There is certainly the possibility that something would change. I mean, but that's really that, you know, that actually is not a thing that happens, right? Democracy is real and good and wonderful. YouTube's terms of service tell me so. YouTube's terms of service say that everything is good and the democratic process is perfect. So, because YouTube's terms of service say so, then we know that it's true. Do you guys understand that, right? Like, if YouTube's terms of service say a thing is true, then it is true. It's part of the reasons why vaccines are very effective. It's part of the reason that this election, will definitely not have any tomfoolery and is 100% on the up and up. We know it to be true because YouTube's terms of service say so. So I just want to be very clear on that. At this point, there doesn't appear to be any tomfoolery, and that's a good thing. And the race has been called. The race has been called. But how many races would new governor Glenn Younkin call? Only one: whites, because he's a racist, according to everything I've heard so far. So here's the margin. 50.9% to 48.4%. 96% of votes have been tallied. Republican Glenn Youngkin has defeated Democrat Terry McAuliffe in the race for governor in Virginia, according to a call from the AP. Now, the interesting thing here is we know that Terry McAuliffe cannot challenge this election. Cannot do it. He cannot challenge this election because if he challenged this election, that would be against the democratic process. That would be it would also, strike at the very core of what it means to be an American, to have any challenge to any vote. So he can't challenge it. The Democrats can never again challenge an election. Ever. They can't. Because if they do, then we know they hate America. Princess Blanding was the independent. Her name is Princess. Settle down, Princess. Don't be sexist. Is your name. That's your name. So that's where we are in Virginia. The reason this is a big deal is because Virginia hasn't gone Republican in a very long time. Well, 2014, I guess. Robert McDonnell was a Republican. And then prior to that, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, who switched to Republican. And then prior to 1974, just solid Democrat until 1886. But Virginia tends to be a Democrat stronghold. Biden carried the state by 8 points, I think it was, which is, that's something. Overcoming 8 points against Trump to victory as a Republican is pretty massive. What's the voter turnout? I don't know what the voter turnout of Virginia normally is. Let me see if they have. Based on early returns, turnout for the race appears to have been higher than the most recent Virginia race for governor in 2017. So there you go. That's all this one says about turnout. I don't know how much higher it is. Big turnout. Looks like it. You've got 3.1 million votes here. That's quite a lot. Check out the New Jersey race. Man, you know what you really come here for is my commentary on politicking and voting, which I know nothing. I don't follow this shit at all. Votes are coming in for New Jersey's governor race. Follow along for live updates. Oh my goodness, it's really close, but the GOP is carrying the day currently in New Jersey. Well, New Jersey used to have Chris Christie, right? Wasn't that a Christie? Was Chris Christie New Jersey, or was he something else? Yeah, he was former governor of New Jersey. So, they had a recent-ish Republican governor. Republican governor. It is Chris Christie. But yeah, so, this does not bode well for midterms for Democrats, though. This really does not. Polls had Murphy at plus 11. If you have not figured, look, the polls are a tool now. So YouTube has a policy against discouraging participation in the democratic process, right? Like that is the process. You cannot get someone, you cannot go on YouTube and say stuff like, oh, you shouldn't vote, right? Like you can't do that. You cannot discourage or use misinformation to discourage it. Like I guess you could say you should exercise your right to not vote or something like that. You give some principled reason, but you can't provide misinformation to try and keep people from participating in the process. Like you can't say there's a gas attack coming to all the polling stations that'll only hit Republicans or something like that. You can't do that. Whatever that looks like. That's against the rules. Which means to me that YouTube should discipline any channel that covers the polls to be consistent, because the polls specifically are engineered to make people not participate. They're engineered to discourage a particular party. That's why they'd have an 11-point split on this. That's why the polls were so wrong in 2016. It's why the polls were wrong in 2020, even if the ultimate outcome ended up being correct. The polls were off dramatically, but they ran with them as if they're doctrine, even after being embarrassed in 2016. Why? Because the polls are a tool to keep people away from voting. And they have been for a while now. They're not useful. We don't need to know. Like, if you think about the nature of the polls, we don't need to know who's winning a race that could change in a moment. We don't. There's no incentive to know, like, this is this. This is these guys, how they're charting. I mean, there's incentive for them to know, right? They want to know what messages are resonating with the people and all of that stuff. But for everybody else, like, we should just be going and voting. That would be the idea. The popularity of the particular candidates shouldn't be relevant. I mean, it is, of course, relevant, but in a principle, theoretical sort of way. It should have no basis on how you vote. Like, well, this guy's at 52 points. I guess I'll vote for him. What, that doesn't make any sense. But that's what the polls have become now. It went from this neat informational metric to a device. And that's why you have disparity in polls based on the leaning. Look, if a race is close, those polls can keep, a half point off, then they win. They're going to do it. That's useful. The other interesting thing was Brain. Where'd you go? Where'd you go, Brain? Oh yes. So the other thing about polls is it's not just a manipulative metric for voting. It's a manipulative metric for news coverage, right? Think about it this way. If you have a race that is not close in the polls, it's a 20-point blowout. Do those races get a bunch of news coverage? They don't get any, right? They don't get any news coverage because there's nothing to cover. One person's destroying it. So the polls can be used to artificially inflate clicks. And that is lucrative business for these newspapers. Elections are their bread and butter. Everybody's paying attention in a particular area to what's going on. You get polls showing things closer than they should be and indicating, oh, there's a chance when maybe there isn't a chance. That's a moneymaker. I no longer, I don't put any stock in polls anymore at all because, let's just see how people vote. That's my thing. Let's tally the votes at the end of the day. But the polls leading up to it, there are too many uses for them that are more useful than the data gathering that they purport to be. Evil Bunny, yes, we covered AP calling it for Younkin a few minutes ago. Uncivil Law is rebel streaming. Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's good. Let's see. Automata says, question, isn't there some form of best evidence rule that applies in Wisconsin? Doesn't the state need to show that HD footage is truly yeeted before they can go ahead and use lower res version? I don't know. I don't know if they actually I don't know if they actually have a rule like that or not. Unfortunately, it's not an area of my offhand knowledge, but I can try and find out maybe as we get into, or as the trial progresses. Oh, I should say tomorrow. Whoa. I should say tomorrow that I will have Legal Mindset on for commentary of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial tomorrow. It'll be it'll be a fun time with that. So you should definitely check that out. It'll be good stuff. It'll be good stuff. Okay, let's get into this. Let's get into this Loudoun County thing, shall we? Legal bites. I have to figure out a day. Good Logic says I don't even get an invite. SMH. You want to come on Thursday? Good Logic. I'm going to start an hour later on Thursday. You want to come on? I'm waiting for you to answer. I'm waiting here for you to answer in the chat, and you're not even gonna. You up for a 9-hour stream on Thursday? Good Logic. You're streaming Arbery all day Thursday? Oh, here it is. Oh, yeah. I don't even get an invite. Hey, you want to come on? You're invited. No. No. Do you want to come on now? I'll tweet you the link right now if you want to come on. I sent you the link, Joe. I sent you the link. We're going to talk about this. I said Loudoun County. Okay. Joe should be on in just a minute here. But in the meanwhile, we'll start this. I think Joe will want to talk about this subject too. But we'll get it primed for him. I'll put this on so I can be ready for him. He'll be here in 5. Oh, wait. Is Dad going to go out for cigarettes again? Oh, never mind. I'll just take my headphones off and put them on tomorrow. Here we go. What? This is not the story. Hold on. Where'd the story go? Story was removed from the Daily Mail. Just a second. Here we go. I've got it now. Wait, I don't need this yet. Here's the story. It was the woke cover-up that electrified the Virginia governor's race. Now, on election day, the mother of a skirt-wearing teen who raped a female classmate in girls' bathroom, says he is a troubled boy who identifies as male and just wanted sex. So not a trans issue, according to the mom. Like, let's very, very much not a trans issue. A judge found the teenage boy wearing a skirt guilty last week of sexually assaulting a 15-year-old female classmate in the girls' bathroom at their school. Speaking exclusively with DailyMail.com, his mother, who asked not to be identified for the sake of her underage son. Why are we still protecting this kid? Defended his actions. She said his actions were that of a heterosexual hormonal teen who had consensual sex with the girl twice before. Well, look, I mean, who hasn't been a heterosexual hormonal teen? And when you're heterosexual and hormonal, you just can't not rape someone. I mean, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Not rape? This is ludicrous. What kind of crazy world do we live in where we're not raping? I don't understand this. This is very, very confusing to me. He's a 15-year-old boy that wanted to have sex in the bathroom with somebody that was willing, she said. But apparently he just couldn't find somebody who was willing, so he took the next best thing. I guess it's what we're supposed to take. And again, who hasn't been a 15-year-old boy that wanted to have sex in the bathroom? I know I was a 15-year-old boy that wanted to have sex in a bathroom. I didn't rape anyone, though. There's a big difference. Big difference on that one. She said her son is trying to find himself by wearing a skirt one day and pants the next for attention he desperately sought. First of all, he is not transgender, she said, and I think this is all doing an extreme disservice to those students who actually identify as transgender. Can you believe it? This is where our society is. Guys, like, whoa, we got to be very clear. This is not about the trans people. Oh my God. We can't no. It's the most important part of the story is the trans thing, apparently. It's not about the trans students. In fact, the transgender bathroom issue has never been about trans students. It's not about trans people. It's not about how people identify. It's about the fact that you can no longer question someone in a bathroom that differs obviously from their biological gender. You can't ask the question anymore. You're not allowed to be uncomfortable anymore. You're not allowed to suggest that maybe the person is improperly in the bathroom. You can't do that. That's the issue. It has nothing to do with whether or not they're trans. In fact, I think the more concerning thing would be the person who is not trans using some sort of cover story, like wearing a skirt, for example, to go into a bathroom, I don't know, hypothetically in Loudoun County, and rape a girl in that bathroom. That's the issue that we're worried about. Uh-oh. Okay. I have an intro here for this person.
Pretty sure we have a mistrial here, sir.
I'm gonna mistrial my foot up your ass.
That is awesome. Thank you. I'm very, very flattered. Really, really flattered.
Welcome to the show. I'm glad you were bitching at me in the chat.
If just so you know, by the way, I'm going to put you a leg up on all those, even though you don't really do politics and elections. I'll put you a leg up on a lot of people who talk politics. It's actually pronounced Chitterelli. Yes, Chitterelli. Yeah, I hear all these people, everyone refers to him as Citarelli because I think they're afraid that saying it the correct way is going to sound offensive.
Like Shitterelli.
It does sort of, or, I'm sure he got, he got a lot of ribbing as a kid. But it actually is, I know because I got automated phone calls today, like 6 times telling me to get out and vote for Chitterelli. So I don't think they made a mistake in that. And that's all the commercials. Whenever he introduces himself, that's how he says it. So it is governor. It's not governor. It's Governor Chitterelli.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for the assistance. I'll make sure my extensive New Jersey governor race coverage is a step above the competition.
Yes, that's what I offer you. I even sent you, by the way, I sent you a DM of a link for your thing on Rittenhouse that you really should check up out for homework, because this is a link that has been viewed only like 1,000 times or 2,000 times, and it's got comprehensive breakdown. Like basically, it's an hour-long video that they put a really good timeline from leading up like a half hour, 45 minutes before the first shooting, where you see Rosenbaum and all the people who were involved and the initial stages of conflict that led up to the shooting. And even stuff that happened in between when he's running away, how he ends up on the floor. There's video there, which I think almost nobody has ever seen, that you might want to share with your audience. I actually plan on doing it on Discord with some of my people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a lot of important video footage that's there, and it's all laid out very, very neatly. So I sent you the link. You really should check it out. But
I see. I checked my DMs. I see it there. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's what I bring to the table. And by the way, yeah. So Thursday, I figured you took the sexy case. Rittenhouse is the sexy case. I mean, it definitely is, and what I mean by that is it's a case that we all can get behind. It's like rooting for America when you're rooting for Kyle, right? I mean, that's really what we're doing. We're rooting for America, that self-defense is still a valid defense, even if you're, against the evils of liberalism and all the lefties. And that's why it's an easy case. We're all on the same side. That definitely, that's a case where the guy was in the right and he's being railroaded by the system. The Arbery case is one which is actually, to me,
much more nuanced.
Yeah, it's much more nuanced. It's much more complex as far as, I'm not sure what side I'm on here. I'm not sure who's in the right. I'm not sure. They really might be racist who really were hunting a black guy. Or they might really have been legitimately trying to, keep the peace. And in that sense, it's actually...
Or they could be somewhere between. That's the other thing. They could be somewhere between that where, they're somewhat trying to keep the peace, but maybe they're a little too on guard and they got overly zealous. I mean, we don't know.
Right.
Right. And then that case is complicated by the other guy, who's following with the video.
And what's his level of involvement, and should he be held to the same standard? There's a lot that's going on there, which is why I was like, you know what, Nick's got his ultra grift here with Rittenhouse, and it's awesome. You're giving awesome coverage on it, amazing coverage. I check in on you every day and see how you're handling that, and I enjoy your coverage. Arbery, they're still in the middle of jury selection, and they'll basically be a video feed for like an hour and a half, and then they'll be off camera for like 5 hours, and then come back for like an hour. It's like, this jury selection process in Arbery is a disaster. So what I was thinking I was going to do, and what I plan on doing Thursday, is I'm actually going to be joined for 1 hour slots by a bunch of different attorneys. In fact, I invited you, but you're busy doing Rittenhouse.
Yeah, and sorry.
That's okay. So basically, I've got Andrew from Legal Mindset and Legal Bites. I actually have Viva Fry joining me at noon for an hour, just to break down different perspectives as to what they did and how the law should apply to them as we see it walking into the trial. And basically, I'm hoping to get Nate and Uncivil, basically having a whole bunch of different attorneys, each spending an hour with me one-on-one, rather than having the panels that we generally do.
You should reach out to a guy named Andrew Branca, lawofselfdefense.com.
Okay.
He is responsive generally to emails and stuff. So I would reach out to him. He's a use of force expert. I interviewed him on the Arbery case way back, 6-7 months ago, probably. Maybe even longer. It might have been sometime last year. I don't remember. And at that time, we didn't have as many details about, like, now they found fibers from Arbery's clothes, allegedly, that were in the bumper of the truck from the guy that was driving behind him, I think. So there's a possibility that it's one of the two cars. The allegation is that they had, prior to the video started, sideswiped him while he was running. Wow. Maybe which, if that's true, if they're able to substantiate that changes the calculus of what's going on pretty dramatically.
Sure.
And so we had talked a long time before any of that had even been alleged.
Surfaced, right?
And he was firmly of the idea or conviction that the McMichaels were going to be it's the McMichaels, right?
Yeah, McMichaels are the father's son. And I think
Yeah.
the guy's body is the other guy, or what?
I can't remember the last guy, the other guy's name, but he was firmly convinced at the time that it was straight up self-defense. And he and I had a really good discussion on that show about how actually Arbery being deceased, it doesn't matter as much, but in theory, Arbery would have had a similar claim of self-defense against McMichaels, which would have justified his charge for him charging McMichaels for himself. And that those two propositions can both be true. Both people can have a justifiable self-defense claim, and one party ends up winning. And we had a really good discussion about that and how that would work. And in this case, in the McMichaels case, it's a really interesting thing. Because one of the big questions is, why does Arbery get past the car, turn left, and bolt straight towards the guy with a shotgun? And we don't.
And you could think that he thought he was being lynched, you know, I mean, and that's why he would have a self-defense claim. And if they think they're in the right, then they feel they have a self-defense claim. It's a really interesting. I mean, I'll tell you this much. A week ago, I was leaning towards saying, yeah, the McMichaels were in the right here. And then I had a whole long conversation with Uncivil Law about the Georgia statute and the duty and the right to use lethal force only arising for a citizen when they're actually trying to escape. And escape doesn't mean flee. Escape actually means that they were in custody and then escaping, which implies that they were not acting in the right. And that changes the whole calculus. When you're trying to use a gun, not purely for defensive reasons, but for an offensive reason. So to my mind, you need to be acting within the scope permitted by law. And once you go beyond that scope and using the gun, not for purely defensive reasons, but for an offensive purpose of conducting a citizen's arrest. And now I think that if you go outside the specific metes and bounds that are allowed by law for what you're allowed to do, I do think that rises to a level now of culpability where perhaps finding you guilty of murder is far more justified. So I'm really in the middle. I could be a fair juror in this case because I definitely could be swayed by either side on this, and I think that makes this case. It's not as much fun in the sense of like the passion that you would get for Rittenhouse, but I think it's more like intellectually stimulating because it's like, rather than just like, oh, okay, we won a good point here, or oh, that sucked, why didn't he make this claim? Which was how I'd feel covering Rittenhouse. Here, it's a matter of like, I feel like I'm going to spend the whole time going, huh, that's interesting. Okay, and try to break down, you know, how that's affecting my perspective as far as guilt or innocence. So
I'm actually really annoyed that they're happening at the same time.
True. I know, I get that because you would love to do both of them, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I've been some of these trials. We've been waiting to see them come forward, and I got absolutely boned on the Chauvin trial with my trip to Florida, ruined my plan because I was going to do this with the Chauvin trial,
right?
And I got absolutely boned on my timing on my trip to Florida, and I can't do 9 hours of coverage at my parents' house. There's just not a place to do it.
Yeah, I was there.
So
you have like a little section there.
Right, you have a section, but that whole floor plan's wide open, and so it's like, I have to be kind of careful because if I'm loud at all at night, you know, it'll carry right into the bedroom. So, but yeah, so I want to cover the Arbery case. I'll have to maybe try and squeeze in some updates, but your coverage, I will direct people to you on Thursday if they're looking for coverage of that for sure.
No, I appreciate that. I think it's a great time for a lawyer griftapalooza between these two cases. And yeah, it's not something that any one show can actually handle. So that's why
can't do it.
I think that, I think it's a great thing for like you to be handling Rittenhouse and I'll do Arbery, and I'm sure that I'm looking forward to providing, the best coverage I possibly can. And your coverage is always great. So I think that's win-win for all our viewers. So
yeah, it sounds like you're going to have a really good show with all the rotating guests and different perspectives. I think that'll be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So,
are you ready to talk about a boy in a skirt in Loudoun County?
is this the boy who's being charged with rape?
Convicted.
Oh, he was convicted. He was convicted.
He was convicted of one of the rapes so far.
How old is this boy? He's 15.
15, and the girl was 15 as well.
What's the penalty in Virginia for a 15-year-old who commits that level of assault?
I don't know. I don't know on that one.
I'm very curious because you would think if he was an adult that the penalty would be, like 20 years. But as a teenager, like he might get out in like a year and a half. You really don't know.
Michael Palmer, I already poured and started drinking my 1K shot. I had a lot of liquor this morning too. trying to not die throughout the day. And it was never to the point where I was like intoxicated. It was just this constant thing because I had a lot of people watching, so a lot of likes. So I'm trying to not, my poor liver.
I want to ask you a question as far as coverage of this with respect to YouTube, because there's obviously going to be video of people getting shot that you're going to be airing in the course of the trial. So what happens to your stream with that? So they just demonetize it, or what happens?
Yeah, typically it'll get demonetized, and it's possible that it'll get an 18 plus thing where you have to have a YouTube account to view the video playback. Although my first day coverage is demonetized. I have no idea why. It makes no sense. Nothing happened on the first day that was demonetizable, but maybe because it was a sensitive topic, I don't know. But today's has been validated and approved. So I don't know the difference. Today had more violence in it because we had some of the video from the defense playing.
Right.
But I at this point I don't know. I've learned one thing, Joe. If you want to say no words, if you want to say the naughty stuff and not get demonetized, just wait till after 2 hours.
What do you mean? Oh, okay. What you're saying? Once you're 2 hours into your stream, you can get away with a lot more?
Yes. Now, you can't get away with policy violations, community guidelines. Those are different. But I tested this out the other day. We got past 2 hours, and I dropped like 8 F slurs and like 9 Catch You Next Tuesdays in a row, and that stream is fully monetized. I said a whole bunch of terrible stuff after 2 hours.
Really?
Yep. That it's for some reason they're monitoring. And their review process stops at 2 hours. So if your first 2 hours are good, you're pretty much okay. Again, not community guidelines, not copyright, anything like that.
Right.
But on the
pushing
good
those
profanity.
pushing those boundaries. All right, I like that. That's a great insider tip.
I assume eventually they'll change it, but for now, I'm gonna ride it out because
I guess it makes sense that they sort of like after a certain while they're like, okay, we can't watch any more of this crap. We're 2 hours in. It's like, oh my god, this is like an 11-hour stream. I'm not going to sit through all of it. So the first 2 hours seem okay. So we're just going to give this an okay.
Yeah, and it's weird because to me, if I'm YouTube, right, it gets flagged by the algorithm for demonetization when you say like an F slur or an N word or whatever. To me, the system would flag like that
spot
instance and then, play 10, 15 seconds on either side of it. That makes sense in how that would function.
You would think that technology today could manage to do that. That's the expectation you would have for a multi-billion-dollar company that's what they do. This is what they do. You would think that they could do that. Yeah, I agree with you.
It is there. It is what they're doing. I mean, the software that they're using, the AI, is grabbing these words. It's transcribing you and all that stuff already. So we know it's grabbing the words, but it's for some reason over 2 hours, it must be too resource intensive. It doesn't do it. Robert Barnes in the chat. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, Robert.
I owe you an email and I will try and remember to send it tonight. He's asking what your thoughts are on the Rittenhouse opening statements.
I didn't even get to see it. So I'm going to ask you for a breakdown. I wish I can give my thoughts on it. I had a car emergency with my daughter today, and I spent 7 hours trying to get a trying to get a car towed with just, it was a disaster. It was a disaster all day. So I can't even weigh in on that. Yeah. I would ask Robert, if you're there in the stream, I would love to have you join me for an hour. I'm having a whole bunch of people, as I mentioned earlier. I know when you walked in here, but I already have lined up. I have Viva at noon. I'm having each one go for an hour. I'm having Viva at noon. I'm having Legal Mindset at 10, Legal Bites at 10, Legal Mindset at 11, Viva at noon. I've got Eric Hunley joining me at 2, and I'm looking to fill in like another 3 slots. And if I can get you in for an hour to join me with your thoughts on the whole Arbery trial, Robert, I would really love it. If you can hit me up in DM and Twitter. I would, yay or nay, just hit me up in Twitter. I would really love it. So
yeah, he said sure. So if I were you, I would DM him on Twitter, and then hopefully he'll get back.
I'm going to do it right now. I don't even need to talk to you anymore. I think I accomplished everything I was looking for.
And Chance Schofield says, Robert Barnes, talk to Rekieta Law before he bans me. Chance, you're not going to get banned. You kept asking me the same question for 2 days, and I was focused on what's going on in the trial. I think everybody should check out what Barnes said. I haven't had a time to watch it yet because it's literally stream, sleep, stream, nap, stream, sleep, stream, nap, stream, sleep right now for me. So I haven't had a chance to watch it, but on Viva Barnes' most recent live stream, I believe it's at 12 minutes and 12 seconds into the live stream is what someone told me. Robert lays out his thoughts on what happened. For a brief summary, Robert Barnes had a team that was purportedly funded by, I think, the Free Kyle USA donation, and there was some indication that this team was going to be earmarked the funding from that, and then their job was to help with assist with jury selection. And Robert is saying to review the opening statement of Richards, but that something happened and they were squeezed out. And there's some internal politics there. I haven't commented much on it because all I know about it is stuff I've gotten third hand from other people. And so that is why I'm staying away. I tell people, go to the source, go to Robert and talk about it. Okay, team was working for free. See something I didn't know. That's why I would suggest going and listening to what Robert had to say on Viva Barnes. That's going to be your best source of information. And then from my perspective on this is this has happened. And there's plenty to discuss about that. However, what I'm covering right now is the trial going forward, and worrying about and speculating on what might have been isn't super useful for the coverage that I'm doing. Nate and I talked about this when Nate was on my show the first day when we heard about this happening, and it was jury selection day, and we both agreed if you've got a panel of experts and you've got the expertise of Robert Barnes available to you, even if you're not going to utilize that expertise or if you're going to disagree with it.
Yeah. Why would you not at least give it a listen?
Yes.
Give it a listen.
Exactly.
And say to yourself, does maybe some parts of it, maybe there's going to be one little nugget in there that we hadn't considered that we want to reconsider, putting that in there or taking that out. Like, why wouldn't you? It's so dumb.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. Look, I'll send no pressure on it, but I'm going to send Robert a link if he wants to pop on and add some commentary or add some thoughts on tonight's thing. He is welcome to do so.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
If he's not able to, if he doesn't want to join, or if he doesn't want to make any comments about it, also fine. Again, no pressure, but I just wanted to make that link available to him.
Is there any other possible explanation other than narcissism as to why someone would just say, I'm not listening to any other input? Can you think of any reason beyond?
I'm trying to think of a different, more neutral wording than narcissism, but I like, if you don't want to have competing personalities, if you're running a case, like Richards is lead counsel, Sharif C is assistant counsel, it seems, and so if you're running that case and you don't want to have interference from someone else, maybe, but I mean that could be chalked up to narcissism, right?
Maybe not narcissism, maybe insecurity. That I'm not going to look like I'm not going to look as if I am the infallible one here, and people start to question whether others might have better input than I have. That's the only. So maybe that's not narcissism so much as an insecurity as far as how you're going to be viewed by the overall team if they like someone else's work better than yours.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I was kind of thinking is, hypothetically, Barnes and his team come on to assist. Richards ends up winning the case. Then everybody goes, "Oh, it was great that Robert Barnes won the case."
Right.
Like
right. It's sort of like Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson from the 90s. I know you don't know the reference, but when the Cowboys had a dominant team in the 90s and Jimmy Johnson was the coach and Jerry Jones was the owner, and everyone and Jones the owner couldn't stand it that he didn't get credit for assembling these players and that all the credit went to Johnson. He's like, he's out. And he basically replaced Jimmy Johnson with his worst enemy on the planet to be the head coach just because the owner, Jerry Jones, wanted all the credit. And he ended up destroying the team by doing that. So
yeah. So here's the interesting question. Like my review of the opening statements was this. I think the prosecution put forth a very competent opening statement. It was effective in what they wanted to do. The prosecution showed that he is not a bumbling dummy. He was very comfortable in front of the jury. He gave them a well-rehearsed speech about what had happened. He set a good narrative for what they want to accomplish. He made some potential mistakes. He may have opened up character evidence for Rosenbaum and Huber, which would be big mistakes for him to do that.
Huge. The last thing that the prosecution ever wants this jury to know about is anything that happened in Rosenbaum's life before that night. That's right. They don't want them to know anything. They just want him to be some poor little guy. That's how they want the jury to think of him.
Yeah, and his if he ended up doing that, it'll be devastating. If he didn't end up doing that, then his opening was very good. The biggest problem for the prosecution is that their case is garbage. Like their overall case against Kyle on the law, on the facts is not favorable. They have to craft a narrative that like every little action Kyle does throughout the day somehow amounts to a sufficient amount of provocation that he loses self-defense. That seems to be their main strategy. And you could tell that this main plea to emotion that he did is everybody is there in Kenosha. They're all under the same stress. There's the rioters and the arsonists and the looters around everybody. Everybody's in the same amount of danger. And only the defendant shot someone that day. Only the defendant pulled the trigger. And I mean, that actually is completely irrelevant to the legal question of self-defense, right? Because basically every self-defense claim, the person is similarly situated to everyone around them, except for the obvious leading up.
The obvious response to that is only the defendant had someone charge him trying to grab his gun from him after threatening to kill him.
Exactly. But my review of the defense opening statement was it was jumbled and tortured at first. The first 20 minutes of it was really rough. It was not organized very well. Richards had a PowerPoint, which is a double-edged sword. I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint presentations myself. I think they're distracting. I think it's better to engage with the audience. But hey, I'm a person who engages with people I'm speaking with on a frequent basis. I don't know if Richards is that kind of guy. Maybe the PowerPoint is a better thing for him to do. It doesn't matter to me. I thought that the last 10 minutes of the defense's opening statements were very strong, and he got in some really good pictures that I had not seen before. Nice high-res photos of Huber trying to pull the gun away from Kyle Rittenhouse. Hand on the gun, the gun, basically Kyle's arms extended, trying to keep it. These are good pictures. Pictures of Kyle getting kicked in the face moments before, pictures of Gage Grosskreutz putting his hands up and then, pulling the gun and pointing it towards Kyle. These are all things that were well done in the last 10 minutes. It's just that first 30 minutes of the opening statement was like the first 20 was really messy. Then it started to kind of transition into being good for about 10 minutes. And the last 10 were really crisp. I think it should have been edited down. It should have been, this should have been a much faster statement, because at the end of the day, whatever everything else is in this case, all of the narrative you want to build, all of the storytelling comes down to one question. Did Kyle Rittenhouse feel reasonably in fear of imminent death or bodily harm from Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, and Gage Grosskreutz? The evidence is going to show that he absolutely was in fear for his life at each point in the evening and consistently throughout it. He was being chased by a mob. He was being chased by a crazy midget. He was being hit by a guy with a skateboard, and he was being threatened by a guy with a gun. And everyone else who came up and confronted Kyle Rittenhouse that day walked away alive because they didn't do those things. That would have been.
I'm gonna tell you right now, one of the biggest problems that I think attorneys have, I think 98% of all attorneys have this problem, is that we are not taught sufficiently well to self-edit and really break it down to the hardcore. These are the key elements I want you to walk away with, and not boggle it up with all these other facts of setup and arrangement. And what about, then you have to consider this, you have to consider that. But that, I'll tell you something, learning, when I'm working now on making a viral video, which is not viral yet, but this is going to be my first really viral video. And the key to me, and welcome, Robert, the key to me, and this is a skill that I think each of us need to learn, is that you need to trim and say, this sentence here, is it really vital? And if it's not, shave it out. And if it's not, shave it out, because you have such a limited attention span. We're talking to an audience where Americans in particular have such a limited attention span that you want to drill certain key points in their minds, and that's all they remember. And if you can keep it down to certainly under 5 points, 3 points, this is what it is. The pictures are worth a billion words. The pictures of the guy holding his hands up and then pulling a gun, the hand on the gun, like you're saying there, that's really what you just want. This is what the whole case is about right there. This is it. You see these pictures, game over, end of story. And if you boggle it down with other words and confuse them, then they're asleep by the time you're showing them pictures, and the pictures have lost all their effect. It's stupid.
The videos, by the way, was my idea. That's probably why Binger was surprised. I don't think Richards has ever done it before. They're not known for doing it. Too many defense lawyers don't use it. People, especially in our age. So I think Gen X and below understand this, but above, lawyers, by golly, still don't, are visual. They're visual learners. They're visual communicators. They're visual understand. So I give Richards credit that he did borrow that idea from me. That it could have just, I'll be circumspect to what I say. What I had recommended was, what I'd recommended was a full different team, to be frank. But at a minimum, to have advisory counsel available, because I was nervous because Richards doesn't have a winning record. He doesn't have a reputation for winning, and you kind of saw why today. What he's good at is factual recollection. So that's his skill set. And I was like, well, we could plug and play that. And I didn't want to step on egos. So I was like, well, why don't we just have advisory counsel? We'll have some guys that can help. And the thought process is we could build that to maybe have different people take different roles. In the Snipes case, we had a lot of egos that were there. And, over time, we were able to manage them pretty successfully. So there's ways to do that. Johnny Cochran did it brilliantly in the OJ case. He if you can manage F. Lee Bailey, you can manage anybody. But and what I'd recommended was what I wanted, though, was just a video presentation to stand up and say, I would have started off with a little more drama, of course, but that's me, different people, different personalities, have at it. I would have started with the shot in the air, the shot in the air behind, and that's right behind Kyle, and he's turning around in shock, and then take that jury into Kyle's head and start with him being attacked in the most dramatic manner. Because then you have the rest of the self-defense, and then say, you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take any witness's word for it. Let's watch the video and break it down piece by piece by piece, because that was always the best testimony, best evidence for Kyle. You don't have to believe prosecutor. You don't have to believe defense lawyer. You don't have to believe a single witness on the stand. You get to witness it, but take them.
Believe your own eyes.
Exactly. But start it off by drama of a shot behind Kyle's head so that they're in Kyle's head, experiencing everything in that video through Kyle's eyes. And so I credit Richards for using some visuals, because those visuals are so powerful. Binger couldn't use them, as Nick pointed out. Binger's having to make magic with bad facts that don't really support his claim. So he wasn't going to use any visuals. And so that's why he was whining about the visuals being used. And now he's trying to bore the jury with irrelevant visuals, so they'll just not pay attention to visuals the rest of the trial. Like, people are wondering, why is this third witness going on for like 40 minutes of crap? This is why. I mean, Binger is very sophisticated. I kept telling people, the guy's an ass. The guy lies repeatedly. However, he's very good at what he does. That's a skilled prosecutor. He dressed like a criminal defense lawyer. My brother-in-law said, "Isn't that guy the defense lawyer?" I said, "No, he's actually the prosecutor." That what was that urban suit cut store that used to exist like at strip malls?
Urban Outfitters.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. It was like purple with a purple and thing and a little purple thing, all that jazz.
He had the little American flag pin eagle on there on the lapel too.
Exactly. I mean, making it the eagle instead of something. I mean, smart little maneuvers. That what he has going for him is he worked the media so well and the public so well in the months leading up to this that when we polled it, Richard Barris pulled it for me. I never billed Rittenhouse a penny, never got paid a penny, over 6 figures in cost and expenses into the case in my time. Everything was on my own dime, and I got everybody to like the whole advisory council's 10 lawyers. The idea was, I get Richards might have suspected that I didn't hold him in real high esteem and probably wanted to have other people replace him in parts. But that's what, in my view, would have ultimately been best for the kid. And particularly, you have an 18-year-old kid. How is he supposed to know how criminal defense is supposed to work? You don't give tactical choices to a kid. You give your criminal defendant plea choices. That's his constitutional right. Whether he testifies, that's his constitutional right. He's not in a position to know what would be a good opening statement or not, what would be good cross-examination or not, what would be good arguments in the court of public opinion or not, who would be good at briefing. They should have already dismissed the gun charge by now. And the judge was willing to, and if they just would have pushed harder on some arguments we were urging them to make, I think it would have already happened.
Yeah, I think on that charge, when Sharifsi did the opening argument, I thought he did pretty well, or not the opening argument, but the oral argument for that. He did pretty well, but he didn't hammer on the fact that Section 3C, the specific exception that matters here, starts with when the person is carrying a long-barreled shotgun or a long-barreled rifle, basically. When this particular instance that we're talking about in this case exists, Judge, the law is different, and it's different in this way. That's why the law is different. He did not hit that very well, and I thought that was a big mistake at oral argument. I don't know what's in his brief, of course, but now hopefully their supplemental brief or their motion for reconsideration, which the judge apparently had not seen yet as of this morning or yesterday morning. I don't know. Hopefully they've hit it harder in that because and they have included, I believe, the legislative history. And that's the stuff where we basically see the change in the early 90s, where it's like, we've got a gun problem, a handgun problem in the cities. That's what this law is about. We're not really concerned about kids running around with rifles out in the country.
Well, especially, exactly. Wisconsin's 2/3 rule. They were not trying to take away teenagers. They're often the lead defenders on the farm, if you will. Their right to have a rifle or a shotgun. That was never the law. The other argument I was encouraging all along, which the judge actually previewed that he liked, but that they haven't hammered, is that at a minimum, this is void for vagueness. How is a 17-year-old kid supposed to figure this out if lawyers can't agree on what it means?
Right.
That's the rule of lenity, right? That they should, that under the rule of lenity, that you have to you cannot find him guilty, and it must be dismissed.
And I think Schroeder will rule that before the end of the trial. That charge will be dismissed. But I think they would have had a better chance to have got it dismissed earlier if they had hammered home that. But I just found it weird. It was like we were offering to have help on brief writing and research, and tap in a whole bunch of other people on this to support. There's also a Second Amendment issue. Can you constitutionally prohibit a 17-year-old from being able to defend himself with a gun when a 17-year-old can be summoned up into the effectively it's called the militia. I would have avoided that word for obvious reasons, but called up into armed service. How can that be? And there's the Fourth Circuit case went back and forth on certain aspects of this for 18-year-olds, but you can make a good argument in the same logic for 17-year-olds and just throws in another reason. But they never wanted any help. They wanted nobody involved. like today, there was a lot. I'd been asking for the discovery all the way back to help with the case, but also there's going to be aspects of discovery that the government, by definition, already knows because they produced it, that I thought could be helpful in the court of public opinion. There were a bunch of things said today by the first witness, Mr. Black, that Kyle's longtime friend called him his brother, so on and so forth, that would have been very, very helpful. That we could have been putting out there for months in advance to counteract this barrage of false stories that Binger helped propagate. That, of course, you don't hear any talk of all the nonsense he was, not just because of exclusions of evidence, but there was a lot of stuff that was put out that was patently false from day one.
Right.
And it's unfortunate. I think the case is going to come down to how well they did the jury selection, and I'm very nervous about how they did.
Well, that leads me to. I have two questions for you, Robert. So, based on your involvement with this case, and the first one actually you just led into, and that was, you were involved, at one stage, I believe, with the whole jury selection process. And my question for you was going to be, to your knowledge, and if you can't answer, by all means, just say you can't really get into that. Did anyone get onto that jury who you think is a potentially lethal juror for Kyle Rittenhouse?
The difficulty we have is, so I don't represent Kyle in any capacity at this point. When I was brought on, it was for everything. It was civil, criminal, you name it. And so my goal was first to have an advisory council, and the goal was to kind of gently transition where Richards would have a role, but not necessarily the dominant role, because storytelling is not his gift. Certain other things are not his gift.
What do you mean it's not my gift, Robert? I'm out here on the front lines in Wisconsin. I've been out here a long time practicing criminal law. You're there in your place in Las Vegas, Nevada, or wherever you think you are.
That's a dead-on imitation, because when I met with him, he wouldn't even make eye contact with me most of the time I was talking to him. I was like, man, this is not – you could tell he was really nervous. And I thought there were aspects of that could be used very helpful for Kyle if it was played right. And by that time, it was clear we were not going to be able to replace counsel unless we got a continuance. He wasn't interested in that. So at that point, it was, let's have some, let's do jury selection, and then let's have some feedback. The whole body language panel was willing to be there throughout large parts of the trial to help Kyle in terms of presentation. I won't get into some of those. Today there was, the media is looking for anything, right? So if you yawn, that they're going to parlay it.
So ridiculous.
It's completely ridiculous. I mean, the kid's on trial for his life. I mean, people react all kinds. But what it is what I always tell people: the more innocent you are, the more guilty they can make you look, because you're not used. Unlike a sociopath, you're not used to learning how to be on guard and on presentation every 5 seconds.
Right.
And so, but they're going to be. But once it was clear that was not going to happen. That our goal was to at least get that role in, and that was open. And then the second part was that we were going to do pretty much all the jury selection, but Richards would have a choice. He could ignore every piece of advice we gave or take it. So I wasn't pushing that onto him, but I knew with the team of people we had, they had the jurors' names more than a week before. So I had 3 database companies that were going to look at every single thing about these jurors, and I had a database. Won't disclose the details of it, but it's a database that knows what songs you like on Spotify and how long you listen to them, that can use it to tell you what your personality is like. I mean, it's that detailed, right? We had another one that had 400 Richard Barris. That was over 400 data points.
That's pretty much what Facebook does, right? I mean, Facebook pretty much, they know what shirts I'm shopping for.
And let's just say this was connected to certain, it might have had some other origins, but it was designed to basically mine all of the aspects of social media in ways that people don't understand or appreciate, that could tell you intricate things. So we would have known everything about the 150 summons jurors before they walked in. And there's usually about a third that you have little intel about. Older jurors who aren't on social media, who are political, and those ones you need to focus on if they're in the juror room. And then we were going to have 3 body language panel people in the room, plus 3 others that are experienced with jury selection, including myself. That we're just going to be watching the ones that we don't have intel or information about, and certain questions. The questions they asked tell me they didn't do the data review. I know they didn't use it because, as soon as I raised questions about some fundraising issues, all of a sudden me and everybody was fired, couldn't get anywhere near it. We're gone, we're out. And I was like, okay, you can dump me, whatever. I don't care. Let's at least use these people. They volunteered their time, volunteered their services because they believe in Kyle's innocence or because they are interested in working with me. Even if I'm out, they'll still do it. They've set aside time. And it's like, no, nobody can be there. Not a single person. It's like, that's the weirdest darn thing. And then I hear them asking questions. Like, one of the things you can get with data research is whether or not they're a gun owner. What you can get with data research, whether or not they support the Second Amendment. Have they ever donated to the NRA or any other gun supporting agency? Have they ever said anything about it on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, comment, you name it? Do they like certain movies? I mean, there's ways you can have really refined information about people if you have 4 or 5 days in advance. The fact that they were asking jurors those questions, because that isn't information you'd want to give Binger for free, right? You want to know that before you walk in so that you know it, and he doesn't, because he was not doing that. He believes a random jury convicts Kyle on something. That's what he believes. And the polling data that we had suggested that was true. A random jury is either a mistrial jury or a split verdict. And that's so, to my knowledge, what they got was, all I can know is from what I watched, because I was out before it was done. So I never got to see any of the jurors' names, only could hear their answers from the court proceedings. And I was wondering, would they ask any of the 17 questions we had identified as risk points? And would they ask questions that they could have got the answers to from data points? They asked the questions that they should have had answers from the data points, and they didn't ask hardly any of the 17 questions we identified as risk points.
Can you give me an example of the risk point type of question?
Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail on that because I think there's a high risk of a high chance of a mistrial here. That's what the most normal, from my review of the polling data, that would be a random jury will give you a mistrial more often than it will give you a split verdict.
Wow.
Then convictions next and acquittals after that. In terms of probability, they had 64 jurors in. They struck 30 for cause. That's a pretty high cause strike rate. So maybe they got rid of the bad ones. My concern was that their cause strikes were more jurors who obviously did not want to be there. I had been trying to convince Richards to tell the judge of our polling data. I mean, not obviously the detailed stuff that's helpful for us, but the overarching, they presume Kyle guilty. They don't want to sit on the jury. He didn't want to do that. And he never did. I think the judge would have allowed much broader voir dire. The judge really believed there weren't a lot of people. This was not a repeat of the Chauvin trial, that they weren't going to be that scared of any problems, that they weren't nervous about the consequences of their participation. He discovered otherwise. I mean, most of the people that were struck were people that clearly did not want to be there.
Yep.
And if you learn the magic words, they're like, oh, those are the magic words. And all of a sudden they came up, yeah, I think I have some. Oh, yeah, I can't. Yep, I wish I could, but sorry, Judge. That routine, they were clearly wanting off. But so I have no idea what juror he got. He likely got a random. If he got a random jury, then the other big thing with me is I believe opening statements end the case most of the time. That most of the rest of the trial is theater for people who are either believers or disbelievers. So you're trying to give them your side, something to hang their hat on, and you're trying, and the other side's doing the same. And jurors have memento memory. I'll give you an example. I once had a case went on for 8 weeks. There was one piece of evidence that I hammered so often, the judge told me to quit hammering it because it was so repetitive. At the end of the trial, I had a juror who voted against me, said, I really wish I would have known this one piece of evidence. It was the piece of evidence I hammered so much the judge told me I was repeating it too much. Why? Because that juror had a bias from the get-go that was against my client's position, and consequently, they just the great movie Memento disappears. That's just the way the mind works. And that's what Binger understands. What Binger's playing to is the way human psychology works. Like, it was fun watching on Civil Law. He's trying to figure out what's rational about this. It's not purely rational. Binger's not an analytical thinker because he knows jurors are not analytical thinkers.
Right.
Binger's playing to the psychology of the jury in terms of the biases it has. I knew exactly what his opening was going to be for the most part because I had talked to people who knew Binger and who had been testing this in Wisconsin independently of me or the Rittenhouse defense, law professors and others with law school classes and the rest. And he kept coming back to this core theme that was identical to Binger's theme, which means Binger's tested it with enough people to know this is what works, which is just, this was scary chaos. He's going to embrace the chaos rather than run from the chaos. Mm-hmm. And he's going to say, because of the chaos, Kyle never should have been there. That's going to be that there can't be self-defense because Kyle should have never been in the middle of the chaos. And that's what this law professor said people kept coming back with was, I can't get out of my head And most of the people keep coming back that when we law student test this, people keep coming back with, why was a 17-year-old kid in the middle of a chaotic riot with a gun?
Yep.
And it's like, now we know that has no bearing on self-defense legally. And we know because somebody should have been there to protect Kenosha from a bunch of arsonists, rioters, and criminals. And that's why I would have liked a little bit more of that in there. I had proposed, like, they even stole the dinosaur from outside the Popular Museum there in Kenosha. I mean, these people were vicious. These people were vile. This was an attack on Kenosha. My thematic structure was to encourage that Kyle was Kenosha that night. He's a middle class, working class, blue collar, innocent kid. And because of that, he was attacked for the same reason Kenosha was attacked. That Kyle, it's no longer Kyle's on trial, it's Kenosha on trial. And to shift that perspective, because there's a lot of, like, one of the things we found in the jury polling, Kenosha was a better jury pool than the rest of the state. Even though they still presumed Kyle guilty, the rest of the state was worse. Why? A lot of people felt deep grievances about the attack on their community. You can go back to 1945 documentaries, and it says Kenosha, America's town. That's how they, this was an immigrant hodgepodge that came together as a labor union democratic town. That's the uber American town. That's how they define themselves, perceive themselves, understand themselves, and put Kyle right in the middle of that. Define him as Kenosha, extend him as Kenosha, and then you have those jurors seeing the world through Kyle's eyes because it's through Kenosha's eyes. And then it makes sense that he's there because somebody has to stand up for Kenosha. Somebody has to protect Kenosha. Somebody has to defend Kenosha.
And at the same time, there's so much video of him screaming, anybody need medical, anybody need medical. I think he must have screamed those words out because I looked at this hour-long breakdown. I could forward it to you because I don't know if you saw. It was a really great timeline of the series of events from like a half hour, 45 minutes before the first shots were fired, involving Rosenbaum and the skateboard and Huber, the skateboard kid, and different people who were on Kyle's side there trying to put out dumpster fires, and how the whole violence and heatedness developed leading up to from like a half hour, 45 minutes before the first shots went off. And through it all, the one thing you constantly hear a theme of him screaming, anybody need medical? I am here with medical. Anybody need medical? He seems like anyone if you watch that video, you can't come to any conclusion other than that he genuinely believed he was helping humanity by being there. And
exactly. He's a lifeguard. He wanted to be a nurse, a fireman, or a policeman. Yeah. The only thing that unifies those things is protecting people, helping people, saving people. And this was his father's town. This was where he worked. This is where he saved people. This is where his friends lived. It made sense that he was there trying to protect and defend people. And that while a lot of people, quite understandably, were scared and terrified in their homes, while innocent store owners were getting beaten, while people's dreams were going up in smoke, a 17-year-old kid decided to try to do something because he thought that was his calling in life. And that's where I would have blended a lot of those other ingredients in. And so, Richards did as well as he could do. I'm glad he showed some key photos that are great evidence. Mm-hmm. I think just narrational structure is not his strength. And I think that it's really the luck of the draw of what happened with that jury, which I don't know. We had confidence that if we got the information and the body language people were all going to be there. So they were going to be able to tell you whether jurors were lying or not. So they were going to be right behind the counsel table. And so they could, give feedback. And 3 of them were going to be there. 3 of them. I mean, and these guys are ridiculous. I once ignored their advice because I've worked with them in other trials. And they said, don't pick this juror. And she was a juror that, like, demographically, young African-American woman, husband had been the victim of the criminal justice system. My only defense was that government bad because, unfortunately, the rest of my defense wasn't that strong, unfortunately, in that case. I had, like, a Binger case. And they told me don't pick him because just the little micro expressions. They said don't pick her, and she was the last one. I was like, I'm gonna stick with her. She was the 4th person against me, so I was like, that's the last time I don't listen to these guys. I listened to them on every other one. From now on, I listen to them on all of them. But I also knew if Kyle was around them and his family was around them, they realized this is skill, this is ability, this is understanding, this makes sense, and I think that's why we were carved out and excluded. Maybe it was because, Richards feels that this is his case and our presence would make it difficult for him to keep control over the case. I don't know. Maybe there's this David Hancock guy who's got a real squirrely past and he's part of the financial issues with the Milo Fund and all that. And so which is the fundraising organism that I am the registered agent, but I will be withdrawing that rather quickly because of what's going on. So, yeah, the kid is innocent. I hope he wins. I believe what we found was any juror that went in presuming him innocent legally voted not guilty all the time. The problem was 2/3 presumed him guilty. And so if you got a random juror, that's the hurdle. And then, I won't give my own opinions on it. I'll give my general opinions. My general opinion is never to advise a defendant to testify on their own behalf.
Right. Yes.
Particularly when you have video testimony and other witness testimony where all of your defense is going to be presented anyway. And it's because two things. The more innocent you are and less experienced you are in criminal justice process. If my client was Bill Clinton, I'd probably put him on the stand. Because Billy Boy knew why? Because sociopaths learn how to lie in advance. They can figure out all the pitfalls and traps, and they can dodge them and evade them very, very well. They can emote correctly and know that even if they're factually lying, as long as they emote the right way, it doesn't matter to that jury. Innocent people don't tell stories the way people think they will, because innocent people haven't prepared to lie in advance. Innocent people are just telling the story as they naturally experienced it, and human reactions to that level of trauma. And like one of the stories that was undertold was how traumatic this was on Kyle. He spent 3 weeks in jail vomiting every single day after this. I mean, that was his impact. You got a little bit of it today, that he was sweating profusely, that he was that he looked white
like a ghost,
white as a ghost. And that's what the media's lied about this kid so viciously, so vilely for so long. That's who he is. But someone who has no experience with the criminal justice process, never been through it at all, is clearly that he's so naive, he believed that when he was going in to help people, they wouldn't try to kill him for it. That's who he is. He's trying to save the lives of people he doesn't know are criminal sociopaths. Some of them he knows are bad people, but he's still trying to save their lives anyway, trying to save their bodies, help them, heal them, protect them. He's idealistic. He's Kenosha at heart. And it's the same Kenosha that got betrayed by Chrysler in the mid-1980s because they believed Big Auto was going to protect them and defend them. So that's who he is as a human being. That's high risk to put someone that idealistic on the stand in a criminal case where people judge you on the craziest things. The second problem, the reason why I say in general, I've never put a criminal defendant in any of my cases on the stand. And the reason for that, even people that really testified very effectively, Joe Bannister could testify very effectively, but we got his testimony in other ways, is because what I call the book to movie problem. So I found this out in a lot of mock trials. The first one actually was Snipes, interestingly enough. Maybe send it over to Alec Baldwin as a reminder to keep his mouth shut. But we found in the Snipes case, all the mock jurors that wanted to acquit Snipes didn't want him to testify. All the people who wanted to convict him wanted him to testify. And then I found that in every single case after that. We went in thinking Snipes had to testify. He would have had a fascinating testimony, by the way. But it would have incorporated a lot of history, the unconstitutionality of slavery, the real history of the race laws, and so on and so forth. He was going to blend all this in. He has Native American heritage. He was going to go into that because he's much better educated and informed than people know. He had a very big library. He has some distinct, unique beliefs that not everybody shares. But they're not beliefs that are out of the sky. They're beliefs based on a lot of reading of a lot of literature and a lot of history that would surprise people in its accuracy. But it's because it's like, think about when you read a character in a book, like a Harry Potter book or any of those others, and then there's a movie version of them. 2/3 of the fans are disappointed because there's something about that, because now all of a sudden they're defined in this limited way, right? True. Kyle just sitting there, they can project whatever traits they want on him. And if they want him not guilty, they project all of those traits on him. People who want him guilty, nothing he says will change their perspectives. They'll grab onto the things that they don't like about him. Whereas the people that want him not guilty, something will jar them because he doesn't fit the projection they wanted to put upon him. Right. And I had made that view clear as well. And that may have been another reason why I was pushed out.
That's a great point. When you romanticize someone and you just have an image as to what their voice sounds like, and how they're what their facial tics will look like when they're talking, and you just have your image based on your own personal history or moments of people that you like and associate certain appearance of their face when they talk a certain way that you're anticipating seeing. So and now I've romanticized this hero that I don't really know. And I assume that that's what they're like, which is basically what teenagers do with people, with movie stars or rock stars that they idolize, that they just sort of imagine what they're like on a personal basis, on a one-to-one basis. So now if you're doing that with a particular defendant, as soon as they open their mouth, you're right. It makes sense. 2/3 of them are going to think to themselves, "What? Really? That's what he sounds like?" Like you just don't like him as much, and you're more likely to sort of to just be less inclined to go to bat for him and go to war. That no, this guy's innocent.
And I think what it is, the natural instinct is if you're around Kyle, you recognize how innocent he is, how sweet a kid he is, how nice a kid he is. And I think the assumption of a lot of defense lawyers is jurors will see that too. And I think in my experience, doing lots and lots of different mock trials, doing actual trials all across the country, studying other trials, doing appeals of trials that people got convicted, you find out that's just not the way it tends to work with jurors.
And on a practical law level, that's less on the personal thing. I don't see what benefit there is to putting Kyle on the stand in this case. There's a ton of risk, but it's like, what are you trying to get? Are you trying to get his state of mind? You don't need to get his state of mind. The prosecution has to prove that he has a different state of mind. Let the juror project the state of mind that they would be in if they're surrounded by an angry mob. They're 17 years old and they're being chased by this weirdo who's been running around yelling, "Shoot me, N-word," right? Like this is let the jury infer the state of mind of Kyle Rittenhouse without having him actually state it, because the prosecution can't state what his state of mind is. They can only try and draw inferences from the same evidence. And in Kyle's case, it's wildly the factual scenario is wildly in his favor on state of mind. So there was that.
You have Richie McGinnis. I mean, like as Richards went through, there's other witnesses that can attest to every single fact that you need in.
Right.
So the other area I would have highlighted if I was doing opening response to Binger would have been two other components. Because my tendency with opening is to first start off sometimes if there's something that is a lingering risk to grab it and hammer it first and then bridge into the rest of my opening. But I think some points that would have been useful would have been one, his whole Kyle's the only guy who shot anybody that night. Yeah, Kyle's the only guy who got chased down by a mob that night. Kyle's the only guy that had someone try to grab his gun away from him and try to kill him that night. Kyle's the only guy where the crowd screaming cranium, cranium, cranium. And what does that mean? That means bash your head in. So yes, Kyle's the only one who shot anyone because Kyle was the only one they tried to kill that night. But don't be deceived. If Kyle had not defended himself that night, those people would have killed other people that night. Maybe they would have been able to run that whole dumpster of fire fuel right into the gas station and blown it up, and Lord knows how many people would have died that night. We don't know about other people who would have died that night because Kyle exercised self-defense that night.
By the way, did you see, Nick, that there was video that after he had killed Rosenbaum, when he was running away, before he got knocked on the ground, that someone asked him like where he's going, he said, "I'm going to the cops." And that's before he got knocked on the ground. And then and
the guy who asked him was Gage Grosskreutz.
Well, yeah, and that's what makes Gage Grosskreutz like the most evil person in the world. I mean, this guy knows that the guy that Kyle's trying to turn himself in, and then he steps up to him like an idiot and tries to blow his head, and pulls a gun on him after this guy just killed two other people. It's like you gotta wonder what the hell this guy is thinking on so many different levels. Kyle wants to go to the cops.
That Binger hid was that Rosenbaum grabbed his gun. The only two people who were shot and killed that night were the two people grabbing Kyle's gun. Mm-hmm. And for people who don't know, if you're grabbing somebody else's gun, legally you are considered armed. You're no longer unarmed.
Right.
Because you're grabbing a gun, you can cause harm with that gun, particularly if you get it, but even if you don't get it. And so everybody was armed that night that was shot. The guy with the skateboard, that's a real weapon.
Right,
Richards
used his dramatic language about
deadly
cutting his head off.
It's considered deadly instrument.
Removing his head from his shoulders. I was like, that's a little strong. That's a strong swing of a skateboard.
Yes. Yes.
Binger actually he glosses it, but he does kind of mutter through that Rosenbaum seemed to be reaching for the gun. Very quickly passes
just reaching
that up.
for it. I mean, what McGinnis is going to testify to is the gun goes off as he's grabbing it towards his chest, just like it happened with Hubert. And then, of course, Grosskreutz is, pulling the gun on him. His testimony is the other problem Binger has is he's got no good testimony right? He made a mistake of slightly opening the door with Rosenbaum, and he
Mhm.
really opened the door wide open with Huber.
He said he was a good boy.
Exactly. I'd been
Terrible.
encouraging but it's okay because maybe they're doing this in ambush. But I said, look, the other way you get in all of their records is if Binger makes the mistake of talking about them being good people. If Binger couldn't do the George Floyd routine, and there isn't the special law in Wisconsin there is in Minnesota where you get to, say a guy's an angel and his history doesn't come in. That Minnesota statute, what the heck? But but in Wisconsin, that's not the case. And in my view, he opened the door on both of them. He opened the door with the whole hospital visit. What kind of he's bringing a hospital bag? No, he just got let out of the loony bin for trying to whack himself from his long criminal history. That's what he was doing while he was and he decided to break his bond to go visit his ex, who he'd previously assaulted.
In violation of his no contact order.
Exactly. He should have stayed away from all of that. And then Huber, Mr. Good Guy. How many domestic violence assaults are you consider a good guy? How much stalking do you consider a good guy? How many felonious criminals do you consider good guys? The prosecutor seems to love pedophiles and domestic violence and stalkers these days.
Yeah, it's really interesting on Huber and Rosenbaum. I'm baffled by a couple things. One, I'm baffled that I heard that Kyle's going to testify. I thought maybe Richards had misspoke, because he misspoke a couple times during the trial and then kind of corrected it. And he mentions that Kyle will testify and also that Nick Smith, I think, will testify right away. So it's maybe he messed up, but it seems to be that Kyle's going to testify. I think that's a catastrophic error. I hope they change their minds. But I'm blown away.
Hold on a second. He told the jury that Kyle's going to testify?
Yeah. In essence, yes.
If he tells him that, now if he doesn't deliver on that, then it seems like they're hiding something.
Correct. And that's why I never do that. What I do is it's always up to my client whether to testify. So I understand that's always an option. So I'll introduce what evidence I can that's relevant and pertinent that maybe can only come through them, but I don't say they're going to testify to that fact. And here's why. Under the law, I can say that under opening because I have a reasonable belief that my client will testify based on my client controlling that and my client telling me so. Maybe my client decides later not to testify, maybe based upon my advice upon how trial goes. The prosecution is not allowed to comment on that in closing because that is an impermissible violation of the Fifth Amendment. That won't stop Binger from doing it, by the way, because that prick will do anything.
The thing that blew my mind from the prosecution side is that they charged McInnes, which and he's going to be a state's witness, which gives McInnes to.
Let's see if he has the guts to put McInnes on. I bet Binger will because he's that kind of guy. But McInnes undercuts his entire case. Yeah, McInnes explains how the gun is being pulled, how these guys were chasing him, how they were crazy. He puts the whole. I hope Richards gets in. My other theory was, what's relevant to Rittenhouse's state of mind. I thought they could have done a little bit more of that with Black today. Is leading up to Kenosha what happened in other cities. I mean, this is not in isolation. This is all across America. People are being beat up, assaulted, attacked, their businesses burned, their lives destroyed, and put into a permanent state of fear. Portland, Seattle, they're taking over parts of cities. That's why there's this reaction when it comes to their town, when it comes to
McCloskey's in St. Louis, all through the Midwest especially. All through the Midwest.
Cops getting shot and killed right in their front lawn, front of a building. So people getting beat ruthlessly by mobs. All of that's relevant because Kyle witnessed all of it. And I believe Black witnessed it. But I know who did. I know Richie McInnes did. So McInnes could put a lot of that into context. We'll see if it comes in or doesn't come in. Binger made maybe Binger doesn't even anticipate it. He never brought a motion to eliminate on that. He never said, don't bring up any violence in other communities, other areas that were leading up to this over the summer of love, as the mayor of Seattle
did, though. Call it. They did with a third witness right at the end, Corey Washington. He talked about people coming from Seattle, from basically moving west across the country and coming through Kenosha, that he saw all these outsiders coming in. So they've already opened the door on that one. If he tries to limit that, then they've got the note. Your witness brought in the fact that we've got outsiders coming into this community from the West who have come from these riots, traveling across the country. That's what your guy said.
A traveling band of criminals. They're there to commit mischief and mayhem and destroy cities and towns and communities.
Yeah, and he even mentioned BLM Milwaukee people were there. and so you've already got some foundation that you've got riots and instigators from other communities in Wisconsin, and then of course from outside. So I think that's a big issue for the state. The other one is I hope they put Rosenbaum's girlfriend on the stand. Like, they're talking about doing it. I'm like, why? So she could testify to what's in his bag? Because that's what he kind of indicated. She's going to testify. Well, there's a water bottle, which you shouldn't say, because a water bottle projectile is a dangerous weapon, basically anywhere.
Instruments. It qualifies as a potentially it could be a lethal instrument, couldn't it be?
Yeah, if you throw one in there's a guy who threw one in a basketball game, got charged with assault for serious bodily injury, because it like grazed one of the basketball players as he was walking out. But so if all you're going to get in is what's in the hospital bag, and it's going to be not really great evidence anyway, but then you're going to open up the fact, why couldn't Rosenbaum stay at your house that night? Why'd he go into the thing? Well, he just got out of the hospital. What kind of hospital was it? You just open up the door. Why was he at this thing? Well, he has a troubled past. Oh, really? Tell me about it. Why don't you just let me know what that is? And if they put her on the stand, they're insane, in my opinion.
I agree. It'd be real tempting to ask the question, what was it like to date a guy who was convicted of sexually assaulting children?
11-year-olds. Yes. Yeah, 10-year-old boys.
Yeah. How did you reconcile that, and how did that affect your relationship?
Yeah. We're not past.
That's when you want
2
the
hours.
deposition.
Are we past 2 hours that we can talk about this? Okay.
Yep, we are. We're past 2 hours. Oh, do you guys want to see the clip of the funniest moment in the trial?
Yeah.
I have to say it does involve some very racy language from Richards. He said some words.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick, about it, that there's a certain dramatic value to saying it yourself. I personally would have had, let's see what exactly Mr. Rosenbaum was saying that night, and let it come from Rosenbaum, and then we can all be like, man, rather than maybe being from him.
But have you considered that this should have been an exhibit? All right, here we go.
I'ma ride for my motherfucking nigger. Most likely I'ma die with my finger on the trigger. I've been grinding that side out there with my nigger. And I ain't going in, it's on with my nigger. My nigger.
Oh my god.
No.
My nigger. My motherfucking nigger.
Oh.
You don't want that to be your viral moment. Sorry.
Oh.
You know what I mean? The other thing is, Richards is older and whatnot. He doesn't understand the difference between the R and the A. That's a very big difference. And,
that's a huge difference. Yeah.
Yes.
It was I could not believe it. I could not believe he dropped it there. It was like I said, it is an attention grabber, but
it's and the problem is it's an association issue. So like there's always that temptation to get into something like that for dramatic purposes. The problem is if you're the one voicing it or you're the one showing it, there's an associational problem where the jury associates it with you and your client.
Yep.
Even though you're saying this is what someone else did, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's always better if it can somehow you can distance yourself from it, so there isn't that visual association unconsciously in the brain.
Yeah, that was a weird moment. I would not have done it. I would not have not engaged it. But that's the choices that were made. What? Oh, there was one. I do want to give. It's easy to dump on Richards because he did make some mistakes. Again, the case for Kyle, I think, generally is just better factually. Which
the kid's innocent by any honest, objective view. Period.
Right.
And Binger's having to dodge and hide and undercut and go over here and go over there because he can't look at the facts. I mean, that's why he didn't have a single photo and video in his opening. It wasn't because, that's my understanding of what's customary, Judge. Hogwash, because it all undercuts your lies.
Right. And the judge beautifully says, your office does this.
Yeah.
That was phenomenal.
Schroeder's great. Yeah, I described him as a Southern judge who happens to live in Wisconsin because he reminds me of old school Southern judges that are just no nonsense. He knows what happened that night. He still remembers the windows being broken in his own courtroom. And he understands that Kyle was defending and protecting the community, who the outside agitators were and who were the local protectors were. And he never bought into any of Binger's nonsense. But that's why Binger to his credit politically, I mean, to his detriment morally, but to his credit politically, that's why he kept making arguments he knew the judge would never grant, because he wasn't trying to persuade the judge. He just wanted to contaminate the jury pool. Keep, getting local ABC affiliate to run it one more time, run it one more time, run it one more time, whatever the latest lie is, whatever the latest libel is. And that was my other disagreement with the team was I felt we should be much more aggressive at defending Kyle in the court of public opinion. Richards is the view of never talking to the media. And he got upset at me very early on when I said, yeah, I plan on being very critical of Binger. And, basically yelled at me and told me absolutely not, I'm like, okay, if you have some angle that you know better, okay. But in my experience, if you lose in the court of public opinion, you can put on as good a defense as Eric Nelson did, and it did not matter one iota.
He had no chance.
No chance.
Eric Nelson had no chance. He did a great job in defending.
Just took apart witness after witness after witness after witness. Only his use of force expert was less than prepared, ideally, and probably shouldn't have been used. But that was about the only. There was one other witness I don't remember that he tripped up on. But otherwise, that was the best defense I had seen in a long time since. There's a lot of others, but at least for a big high-profile trial since Johnny Cochran.
That was exceptional.
Yeah, and Johnny's still the peak.
But that gives me that. But I don't know if you really answered my question, which is, you talk about lizard brain and how it's decided by the opening, which means by your mindset, they can end the trial now. It's already decided. Which
80% of the time it is. I mean, when they've done sophisticated studies on this over the decades, whatever juror, and I've seen it over and over. I originally didn't believe it. I'd read all the studies, 50 years of data, talked to a bunch of people. Then I did it. I've done over 100 mock juries, and whatever they decide, over 80% of the time, after I give a little opening statement, then we'll go through evidence. The rest, whatever they decide, that's it. Jurors don't think they do that, but they do.
So my question to you is, do you think that there was at least one lethal juror there for him? I mean, I don't know if you really answered that question.
The mistrial is the norm. So the reason why mistrial was the norm is there are several people who feel very strongly that understand why Kyle was there that night. If several of those are on the jury, it's guaranteed. Now there's several people who think who blame him for what other people did. And if you get both groups in the jury pool, and that would be your random jury in Kenosha, that's why it's a mistrial. Now, often, like what happened in my Snipes case, I had 3 jurors on there that were lied to get on the jury pool. And lied in to get into the jury, and they ended up holding out and getting 3 misdemeanor convictions when 9 of the 12 jurors wanted straight acquittals. So that's how you get compromised verdicts and split verdicts, and that's why there's a risk of that. And it depends on which hits. If it's not intentional, if it's just reckless endangerment, judge has a lot of discretion with sentencing. If it's intentional, it's done for. But and the problem is there's not a lot of evidentiary errors from appellate risk perspective.
So actually, they were talking about that in the jury charges today. And I know that I think it was Kurt and Nick were talking about it during their stream. And this is the idea as far as they were discussing the concept of reckless endangerment when someone has, in theory, perfect self-defense, and yet it still classifies as reckless endangerment. Now, I can envision something like that. I was actually commenting in the stream, and I can envision something like that, yeah, I might have a perfect defense, but if I'm using a bazooka to kill one person and there's a crowd of people behind them, so yeah, I might be fully justified. The guy's trying to kill me, but I should also recognize that if I fire this weapon off, I'm recklessly endangering a dozen people behind them. So that's not a scenario which I think plays out here. I don't think that's relevant here. The idea of having a perfect self-defense that is recklessly endangering others, because he's not using that type of weapon. So that's why I don't really understand, if indeed there is perfect self-defense, how could you possibly come to a logical conclusion that there's reckless endangerment when he's using the caliber of weapon that he's using?
Because it's not a logical conclusion. Reckless endangerment is really used by a prosecutor for a jury that feels uncomfortable with what happened, but doesn't think the person had the intent to harm someone directly. So it's like a lot of jury instructions. They're moral narratives the jury superimposes. They've done tests on jurors 1 hour after they've been given a jury instruction. Recall rate of critical jury instructions less than 40%.
Right.
Yeah, and that jury instruction's just a mess. It specifically says they don't have a privilege of self-defense, but the jury must consider self-defense if self-defense is. It's like, okay, that to me, that's almost
the one appellate issue he's got.
Yeah, that one's weird. I wanted to give credit to Richards. He did fairly well on cross of Dominic Black.
Yeah, he's really good with facts. That's Richard's strength. He knows facts. Like when I was sitting there talking to them, he could just drop a hat and go boom, boom, boom. This over here, boom, boom. This is the sequence here. That was, I thought, his utility. He would be good cross-examining certain key witnesses. Like all lawyers, we like to imagine we're great at everything. That's just practically. There's always going to be another lawyer who's better than us in some aspect, because it needs a certain emotional component, it needs a certain relational aspect, whatever it may be. Very few lawyers are good at writing briefs and good at arguing cases and good at cross-examination and good at depositions and good at like for me, negotiation. I try to get someone else to negotiate in the civil case, because I'm just not like in Alex Jones. He could see, the old joke, he could sell ice to an Eskimo. Alex could. Alex would be good at anything he did. People see what he does in his space, but he was a great businessman before all that. I mean, he's just a natural marketer if he wants to market something. And someone like Trump, like when I have clients like that, I don't even negotiate. I'd say, you tell me what a fair fee is, and that's what I'll take. Because if I get a negotiation, I know I'm getting screwed. So you just do it. Right. So you find that you know what you don't know. You find the people that are better at it than you. But Richards will do fine with the facts, and he'll do well on most cross-examinations. The only thing I would say is, sometimes he doesn't think in narrative architecture. He thinks in terms of factual admission.
That's very clear from his opening.
Yeah. And so even with cross, sometimes he won't like start and finish in a way that fits into a narrative structure. He'll go with, I want this fact. Okay, no, I want this fact. Then I want this fact. But he will be very good at eliciting critical facts.
Yeah, I think he did that really well with Dominic Black on the issue of your testimony is clearly compromised by the obvious plea deal that Binger has discussed with your attorney, who conveniently hasn't told you about it. That was obvious. Yes,
well,
that's
it's because he can't ask what communications between the client and the attorney. That's how those people don't know. That's how you do a deal without doing a deal.
Right.
The prosecutor talks to the defense lawyer, says, here's what I'll give you if your client testifies to this, 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 and this, but don't tell your client that I relayed that, but you can relate to your client what you think the outcome will be. And then I, as a defense lawyer, if I'm Richards, I can't ask him, what was your conversations with your defense counsel?
Yeah.
And so that's how it's all covered. The prosecutor talks to the defense lawyer, who relays the information a different way to his client, so you can't relay it. What you have is the obvious inference. Hold on, your trial was supposed to be in September, and now it's not till January.
Right.
What'd you need the delay for?
And your attorney and you and Binger went in together to ask the judge for that with no objections. I like that he also didn't ask why they moved the trial, because they could have had some straw reason.
Oh, yes.
And you don't want to have them say, well, I had braces that I have to have put on my teeth.
Or he could say something like, well, I knew Kyle was guilty, and so I knew that would impact things.
Right.
They could say all kinds of crazy stuff.
The
other thing I would say is, what I advise people,
sure,
if you have a situation like this, that's where it's good to help. Like if you have a co-defendant, it's good to help that co-defendant get counsel, and then do a joint defense agreement. Right? You do something like that, things like this don't happen in this way.
Yeah, that should not. Dominic Black should not be on the stand from Kyle's perspective. And it's tough for Dominic too, because these guys are best friends.
You could tell. You could tell in this. He looked over at Kyle multiple times. He doesn't want to testify adversely to Kyle, period.
And he was giving a lot of favorable. He's giving a lot of favorable facts about it too. He's trying to cover his own skin.
If you pushed him for another half an hour, he would have cracked.
Yeah. What do you think about the idea of a JNOV, a jury notwithstanding of the verdict, in the case that Kyle is found guilty? Do you think Schrader's the type of judge to grant it?
Normally, he's known as a hard ass, right?
Yeah.
So his sentencings are high. He's anti-defendant. So it's just this case, the dynamics are reversed. There's different. Local reporters I've talked to believe that unless Kyle gets hit with one of the mandatory sentencing counts, the sentencing will be low because of how the judge perceives the case.
Because he'd normally be prosecuting the other three people, and he knows that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I won't. My view is, I think that judge would have been happy if there had been more Kyles out there that night, because he thinks there would have been less violence, less arson, less blowing stuff up, less burning stuff down, less attacking the community. And he's not happy with the way the police just abandoned large parts of the community that night.
Yeah, that's been pretty clear through some of the motion practice that's come on, and I love how irritated he has been with Binger when he tries to get the little media sound bites of, well, they're not alive to testify. Do you have a point? Like, that's good. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, Robert. Is there anything else you wanted to say about the case? I really appreciate you coming on, dropping your insight and wisdom here, because it's a complex case. It's high profile, and those things really complicate things. You have lots of experience with high profile and complex cases, certainly more than me. Just a small town lawyer like Jimmy.
Well, yeah,
Stewart.
I mean, I think that the kid's innocent. I am worried about what happened with jury selection, so I don't know if the jury will see that. I hope they do, because the kid's innocent, and I hope they think through whether it's really necessary to put him on the stand, because I think they can elicit the best evidence without that. And in my experience, the more innocent the person is, the harder it is to sort of testify, because people have all these crazy perceptions, right? Like they'll interpret something you did as reflecting anger or something. It doesn't. It reflects some part of your personality or something else. So they'll misconstrue so many things. And the kid's completely innocent, and I just hope the jury sees it the same way.
Amen.
Yeah, I think so too. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I still owe you that email, by the way, and I will send it.
No problem.
Robert, just before you go, I'm gonna hit you up on DM on the Thursday thing so I can grab you for an hour, okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Robert. Oh, well, that was an unexpected surprise. That was nice.
Really, see, I bring all the big guns out. There you go. I show up, and the next thing you know, there you go. Like the whole Rittenhouse case is basically broken down for your audience and memorialized forever. So
I'm gonna clip it out. I think it's a useful segment for people to get a nice perspective on some issues of day 2 and day 1 kind of combined. Well, it's getting late now, and I don't really want to cover the stories that I had because it's late. The main one that we were talking about was this not transgender bathroom issue, but it was this boy in the skirt, and the mom is now talking. That's the news today.
Oh, okay.
Is that the mom has said this is not a transgender boy. This is just a horny 15-year-old who wanted to get some in a bathroom, and she's pulling some of the classic non-defense defenses of rape, right? Which she says he's had sex with her twice before, so it can't be rape now. She didn't resist enough, so it can't be rape. These are the things she's going on here. Have you been following this story at all? It's a wild one.
Yeah. I know that Loudon got into all sorts of trouble for basically saying we've never had any sort of problem here. We don't know what you're talking about. Everything's totally fine.
Just covering up the fact that there's an ongoing criminal case that they all know about.
What are you talking about? I don't understand. It's crazy.
What do you mean convicted of rape? It's strange.
Rape, schmape. Everyone makes such a big deal, whether it's consensual or not.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably cover this on a different stream. I think I'm gonna go ahead and read super chats. Do you want to hang out for a bit, or it's really late for you? So I'm
I'll tell you, I have a thing on Discord tomorrow at 11 my time. So I think I'm gonna just bail on you as well. Thank you for giving me your time and stuff like that. I assume that if anything I do with this Arbery thing, you're Rittenhouse 24/7 now. I shouldn't bother asking you even.
Well, no, right? I'm Rittenhouse till about 5:30 Central Time. I could possibly pop in on the Arbery thing. It's Thursday?
Yeah, I mean I'm doing it Thursday. But I plan. That's sort of how I'm launching my Arbery coverage. I'm hoping that by then they'll be starting the trial, and I can actually have some real commentary on there. But I expect that you and I are basically going to be having. I'm covering this thing, which is in the Eastern time zone. You're covering yours, which is in the Central time zone. If anything, I'll be finishing before you, I imagine, on most days. Because
that wouldn't work.
Yeah. That's 5:30 by you is like 3 hours after Georgia courthouse closes. So,
right.
Yeah, but Maybe I'll pop in on you like after I'm done with some of my stuff, and we can sort of trade war stories that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Or
I'll write.
maybe,
We'll be pen pals. We'll still be friends. This is
or
not the
maybe
end of our
something over,
relationship.
maybe on like Saturday evening or something, or Sunday.
Yeah.
We could maybe work something out. But yeah, man, thank you for coming on tonight. Ended up being a very welcome surprise and respite
There
from
you go.
talking about Kyle all day, and then we ended up talking about Kyle a whole bunch more. But
Yeah.
we had Barnes on to help guide us through it, so that was great.
Fresh perspective. All right. Have a good night, my brother. Take care.
Yeah, you too, man. Peace.
Ciao.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and read through the can we get a celebratory Sic Semper Tyrannis? Yes, Sic Semper Tyrannis. Absolutely. You can always get that. I'm going to go ahead and read through super chats, and we're going to wrap up the show for the night. I really appreciate you guys coming out. Again, I'm going to keep doing the nighttime streams because that is the main show. So I will be doing them. I'm glad you guys do come to join for those as well. It's very welcome. And hey, sometimes we get a random Barnes in the wild popping into the stream, or random good Lawgic in the wild popping into the stream. That is always a lot of fun. Tomorrow, to the Patreons and locals and Discord and YouTube members who are in Discord, Live Chat Wednesday is going to get postponed either to tomorrow evening, which might be possible, or it might be a different day because I'll be on the Rittenhouse trial the entire time. So that's going to make covering or doing the live chat basically impossible at the normal time. So Live Chat Wednesday, stay tuned for the rescheduling of that. I apologize. I know it's been really erratic the past month due to me having COVID and then me having a trial, or not trial, but the close of my criminal case for my client. And now it's erratic again because of this, but hopefully we'll be back to normal on that soon. But yes, tomorrow it's going to be not at the normal time. Not at the normal time, and I will try and keep posted on that. And again, I'm long overdue to get in my hot tub. Long overdue. And so we're going to have a hot tub stream soon. All right. So super chats. Oh, and tomorrow, yes, Legal Mindset will be joining me tomorrow. So that will be a fun time. I'll create the link for tomorrow's show right before going to bed tonight. And so it'll be out there. Adafos says, I love your coverage of Kyle's case. You brought up a lot of different angles and thoughts I never thought of for the case. Take my money. Also, if you emailed me, I may have missed it. Enjoy a steak. Oh, thank you, Adafos. I don't know if I emailed you. If I was supposed to email you, please hit me right back. Just because I don't know. I'll search my email for your name, but I don't know if you sent it to me under your YouTube name here. Evil Bunny says, we're doomed. Mentally unwell people have driven the Overton window so far to the fringe, and people treat it as normal. Smack my damn head. Shake my damn head. What is SMDH? Smack or shake? Is it smack or shake? Oh, and by the way, I hope you guys appreciate the Lofty Pickles remake of the Mark Richards N-word, or the remix of it. Because, I mean, how did he? Oh, my God, he made that. It was phenomenal. It's shake. It's shake my damn head. I always think of it as like a smack, right? I thought it was smack, like an autistic, like right, like that thing. Okay, I always thought it was smack. Sorry. Sorry to be wrong. Bad Vibe says, "Oh look, it's Jude Law." Hey Joe, clever. Robbie McCann says, if I was facing a felonious charge where a life was taken and Barnes took my case, everyone else would take a backseat and shut up. No way in hell would I pass up such a capable and competent lawyer as Barnes. Barnes is a great, capable, competent lawyer, and he's a very smart guy who's practiced law at the highest levels all over the country. Turning him down seems unwise to me. C Goody 564 says, check Discord, Nick. I know you hate this, but legit mod question. Man, I'm sorry you sent a super chat for that because I had typed in the response right before this popped up. So we were probably cross typing at the time, but I gave you my answer. I'll consider the whatever other stuff you send me next time I look at it. But Mandy Carvica says, not alive to testify, but not alive to vote for Biden. Oh man. Stormcrow 900 says, Sic Semper Tyrannis. Glad Terry pissed off all the soccer moms in my state. Hope the VA GOP goes more populist and abandon its establishment ways. The rent is too damn high. Populism is vogue right now, and the GOP would be wise to embrace the vogue nature of populism. It really would. What else do we have here? Where are we? Crusader Saracen says, in baseball, as in life, Allah favors the faithful, the strong, and the braves. Allahu Akbar. Does Tomahawk chalk while yelling Arab war cry? Mark Richards says, the name is Mark Richards with 2 hard R's. I like that. Bad Dragonite says, been looking back at Metal Gear Solid 2, and it's creepy how much it predicted back in 2001. Things like widespread use of unmanned drones, private militaries, and certain people using internet censorship to guide humanity. Eerie stuff. I wouldn't know. I never played it. Bruni says, the McMichaels did nothing wrong. Armed robbery, grabbed his shotgun and tried to take it away, causing the discharge. Yeah, I think at that point, I agree. I don't know if they did nothing wrong. They maybe justified self-defense. In essence, armed robbery committed suicide. Then McMichaels aren't racist, because if they were, they would have known better than to go after. Yeah, I don't. I never. Again, I don't pin racism on stuff unless someone says something specifically racist in regards to what they were doing. So I stay away from that. The McMichaels may have been unjustifiably going after this guy, and that could compromise their self-defense claim. I don't know. That's the thing with that case. There's a lot of facts that have come out since I've looked at it, and I'm curious to see what comes out at trial. Jesse Ventura says, my name is Mark Richards, and I've been practicing law in Wisconsin for a long time. So there you go. They're similar. Mark Richards, though, he's got a little bit more of that higher voice than Jesse Ventura. Let's go. Brandon says, Binger, horrible prosecutor, throwing Kyle under the bus for political and financial gain. Not a good look. Just as horrible as journalists. MSNBC cuck reported to the Secret Service like a pussy, a weepy one even, because gun parts had "Let's Go Brandon" on it. Very, very unfortunate. Okay. President-elect Austin M. says, my name is attorney Mark Richards with 2 hard R's. Not applicable. Says Freeb speech. Nick, you're not even drunk yet. Freeb speech? Did I say Freeb? Did I type Freeb? I don't even know. Jero 6 says, Legal Eagles jokes are actually funny. Have you tried watching him? I know you're kidding. MD says, any opinion on Bill H? 4038, semi-auto ban in Massachusetts? No semi-auto bans anywhere. No restrictions on guns. McNukes for everybody. I'm a Second Amendment extremist. If you don't like it, then amend it. Pass an amendment. Change the Second Amendment. You're not gonna, but try. Krieg Guardsman says, Kyle yawns. What a monster. Joe falls asleep at COP25. Poor old man. Batgoat says, you are the Iron Man of YouTube. All praise Grift Daddy. Hey, thank you. Malik Fox says, dude, I'm watching this afternoon stream. Defense lawyer gives no Fs. Those N-bombs he drops while quoting Rosenbaum. Fantastico. Mr. Bentham says, I gotta say, Attorney Tom, not a very tall lawyer. I've seen tall lawyers. Frankly, Doesn't even come close to Legal Eagle. Very sad. Legal Eagle, not the tallest lawyer around. Attorney Tom, much shorter, much less tall. Thomas Fenton says, with the elections in Virginia and New Jersey happening, how much do you guys want to bet the rats are prepping the printers again to wait for everybody to go to sleep? We'll see. If they're smart, they won't. But I've seen no indication that there is anything untoward in the election. The elections in New Jersey and Virginia so far look to be on the up and up. And I'm happy to say that. It would be a real shame if if someone came out and claimed that the Republicans had rigged the election, like I'm sure somebody's going to do. I hope YouTube is consistent in enforcing their policy against suggesting that there are fraudulent election results. That would be good. They should definitely be consistent on that policy. Thomas Fenton says, crazy that we look at elections like Dark Souls boss battles. Just when you think the process has been done, there suddenly comes ballots, the reek of printer ink to M. Night Shyamalan, the vote, sus. Look, again, I don't adhere to that behavior or that notion. YouTube's terms of service does not allow any of that sort of talk. So I will suggest that everything I have seen about the election so far is on the up and up. I have not seen any indications of fraud, and certainly not any levels of fraud that would overturn the election in New Jersey and Virginia. And I think we're way too early to make any allegations about that. And so YouTube's terms of service also says that it's not possible. So we got to be very clear on that. Automata says, article link in Discord DM if you catch this. Shane G says, the best part of the FBI footage is an ominous black object, presumably Rosenbaum's bag, being thrown at Kyle when running across the parking lot. Rob Porter says, hey, from Virginia. Hey, what's up? Thank God my state is going red again. Oh, also, let's go, Brandon Kramen. Stiga says, let's go, Brandon Kramen. Kyle Cluckin says that socialist website also says that Kyle used an automatic rifle. Mags says, first Republican sweep since 2009 in Virginia. As a Virginia resident, time to pop the bubbly. Justin Wood says, thanks for being you. You're welcome. I will try not to ever be anyone else. Crusader Saracen says, will you cover the trial with Andrew Branca? Which trial? Rittenhouse? I can invite him on to Rittenhouse, but I'm guessing he's going to be watching Arbery. He's been writing a lot about it lately. President-elect Austin M. says VA had 1 million less Democrat turnout than in 2020. Sus. I mean, maybe they didn't want to leave the house. Maybe they were afraid Kyle Rittenhouse would come shoot him. Fame NV says, I agree most polls are trash and manipulated. However, Rich Barris with People's Pundit Daily made me $600 off $100 today alone. So it can be useful, and you need to make some merch. I have merch. I just don't have any good merch, and it's my fault. I'm not good at making it, and I don't push for other people to make it. So Vexner3 says U.S. issued first passport with an X gender marker for people who don't identify as male or female, non-binary, intersex, and gender non-conforming persons. There you go. Good for progress. C. Goody says it's not grape if you use analese and yell surprise. Source, definitely not a grapist. Twilight Dragon 3 says, I'm surprised the mother didn't say it was just 10 seconds of action. Brock Turner 2.0. Gummy says 5 bathrooms, men's, women's, crippled, trans, and nose. Yes! Thank God. Someone finally said it. We got to get a nose bathroom. Automata says Rosenbaum would also consider it a sexy case and very much would have seen himself getting behind Kyle. No. Bad Vibe says, oh, wait, I read that one. Reform Mr. Sins has got a substantial pay adjustment, so I can afford to be grifted. Thanks for the great coverage and the entertaining / informative streams. My pleasure, man. Thank you. Dapper Wolf says, Nick, you should drink. You're starting to look a little sober. K-Cash72 says, Attorney Tom's preferred pronouns are ambulance chaser / silver spoon. A Fuzzy Creature says, as an academic who gives presentation, it's hard to be precise about language when you want to explain everything. Real-time editing is a skill. It is. Not Applicable says, whose effing idea was it for him to testify? It might be Kyle's. And hopefully, it's something they're working on him on, but he might want to tell his story. A lot of people who do a serious thing that they don't feel, that doesn't sit well with them, want to tell their story. They want to explain why they would do this thing that's so out of character for them. It's a frequent issue with criminal defendants. No, I'm not like this. Let me tell them. Let me tell them what happened. Let me explain what happened. This isn't me. They want to do that. That's why people talk to the cops in the first place. Kyle did talk to the cops without counsel. As Barnes said, he was throwing up every day for a month in his prison while he was in jail. He seems to have great remorse over the fact that people died. It's not in his character. And, but you don't want him to testify to say it, but he may want to. Hopefully Richards and Sharif C are pushing against that. Crusader says, Barnes, how are you talking with your lips not moving? His thing was freezing up on him, the video there. Robbie McCann, welcome to lawyer status. Thank you. He says, this guy's like the TV show Bull with the jury. Jenny B says, great show. If it is a mistrial, as Robert said, will they retry or let it go? I think they'll probably let it go. Honestly, I think they'll consider it that they've done it, and they're not going to convict if they didn't convict in this first shot. Not Applicable says Barnes would have gotten Kyle acquitted. This sucks. We don't know that Kyle's not going to get acquitted. Calm down. Nathan D says, Robert, what do you think the odds are that Rosenbaum intentionally committed suicide by Kyle? He's not here to answer that. I think that's unlikely. I really don't think that's his goal, but maybe. We need some evidence on it. Mandy Karavicka says, out of these 3 lawyers, only one is dressed for the part. Me. Short sleeve shirt and shorts. Pseudo Snark says, true about red-pilled cops. Fellow cop charged with a bogus crime, low level, $15,000 legal fees to get dismissal. Why I'm out. LSAT next year. Yeah. There you go, buddy. Go get it. Jordan Jones says, given technology and influence today, panel, did we look at a legislative solution to attempt to get a fair trial or tactically manage the atmosphere? I don't think you want legislators doing it, because legislators are horrible. They're one of the few categories worse than lawyers. Tactically managing the atmosphere and using it to the advantage of you and your clients is the key, I think. I just don't trust the legislature to fix it. Brett says, if you believe the judge was on your side, why not choose a bench trial? Was this not an option? Forgive me, I don't know much about the law. Because at the end of the day, one juror can be a mistrial. A judge will never give you a mistrial. A judge is going to either be guilty or not guilty. And you just typically go with a jury trial. And there's a reason it's your right, and there's a reason everyone exercises it. Kevin Dorr says, why was R. McGinnis charged by the prosecutor? Sorry, he's I mixed that up. He wasn't charged. He was the victim. And they charged Kyle Rittenhouse for the reckless endangerment of R. McGinnis, which presumes that McGinnis will be a state witness, not a defense witness. Defense is going to call McGinnis if the state doesn't, but the state bringing them as a victim is likely planning on bringing him to testify. And so that's what I was talking about. I misspoke. Gotcha Son says, tell Tug I said y'all just for him. Andrew War Snowboard says, hate speech is still speech. Hashtag hate speech matters. Tomorrow V says, I want to see how many times other prosecutions that FBI drone footage was used in over the past year in the full 2-hour drone footage public. 0 other prosecutions. And yeah, because they didn't prosecute anybody else that night. Just Kyle Rittenhouse, Dominic Black, and Dominic Black's stepdad. No one important says, did you get my DM about the sex positive puppets? Probably, but I haven't seen it. Bad Dragonite says, the nose man cometh. Crusader Saracen says, breaking news, a Republican just won district attorney in Seattle. Wow. Crusader Saracen says, just read Bronca's coverage of day 1 of Rittenhouse's trial, so I think he'd definitely come on. I'll reach out to him, see if he wants to pop in on any of the upcoming days. Not Applicable says it's 2 years of creams and kegels to fix it. Angry Baneling says, I'm sorry I compared your haircut to Binger's. 'Twas but a huge mistake, one that I've spent 8 hours repenting in my sleep, haunted by it. Woo. Thomas Fenton says, Nick, how much money would you need to be paid for you to be hired as Chris Chan's defense lawyer? Infinity. I don't want to do that. Adam Riley says Attorney Tom is the Jared Leto of YouTube lawyers. What? There you go. There you go. Okay. Okay, you figured it out, right? Stone Cold Steve Austin says, "My name is Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I'm the governor of Minnesota." No, they're different. They're different. Because Jesse Ventura has a similar timbre to his voice, but he has a Minnesota accent. Let's go. Brandon says Kyle's getting hosed. What should be a slam dunk case will most likely be a Pyrrhic victory because jury selection help was rejected, bad accounting of funds, and his life being totally controlled. There you guys go. Factology's unsubbing for that one. That's how I remember Steve Austin. I don't know. It's been a long time since I listened to him. I'll have to check it out again or not. All right, guys. That's the show for tonight. Thank you for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed the random appearances of Good Lawgic and Robert Barnes. I thought it was great. Don't care that it completely was different than the show I had very loosely planned. It was much more interesting than what I had. And now it's time for me to go to bed and get up in 6.5 hours to do it again. I'll see you guys in the morning. Have a good night, guys. Peace.
Why you think done it?
Okay, number one, Your Honor. Just look at him.
He talks like a fag, too.